Hey, listeners, before I start the show, I just wanted to say that I'm thrilled to report that this week's guest, Mike Hatchett, is working on a new film with TGR. Mike's the guy behind Standard Films and all the projects that they brought us, all those amazing snowboarding films. You can actually buy a hard copy of Standard's films by contacting Mike at standardfilms.com. Mike's also in a band called Fortress. If you're from Lake Tahoe, you already know this. Okay, let's start the show with some fucking Fortress. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 8 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards and On Optics, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Ken Achenbach Realestate.com, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Tribute Board Shop is a snowboard community culture builder. Located in historic Nelson, BC at the heart of the Powder Highway, Tribute is a must-visit shop. Shane Johnson and Mark Fawcett have put together an epic curation of the best snowboards, split boards, boots, bindings, and outerwear money can buy. Their staff are passionate snowboarders, and Tribute was the very first sponsor to reach out to FNRad way back at the beginning. If you're in Nelson, be sure to visit Tribute Board Shop or shop online at tributeboardshop.ca. Support also comes from Dakine, Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, Pro Standard GoPro accessories, and Volcom outerwear. If you haven't already done it, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where we're trying to build the show, build momentum. You guys can really help out by subscribing there. If you'd like to win free 1910 clothing and Beneath apparel, pause the show, go to the FNRad YouTube channel, and comment "I want 1910 and Beneath" in the comments of this episode, or tag 3 friends in the Instagram post along with @1910 and @Beneath. I'll pick a winner at the end of the week. You're going to get both this time, so it's worth it. Special thanks this episode to Standard Films, Teton Gravity Research, Tomahawk Indigenous Products, and be sure to check out Kaya J and the Drink Ticket's new album, Better. Okay, Mike Hatchett's the guy behind Standard Films, the company that produced the Totally Bored series of snowboard movies. TV2 through TV10 were the soundtrack to my early adult life, working at the boardroom. Mike's ability to combine progressive snowboarding with heavy metal music has never been replicated. Mike Hatchett put together the most epic crews of pro snowboarders and brought them to Alaska, where they were able to push the boundaries of what's possible in freestyle big mountain snowboarding for years. And as you'll hear, Mike was taking solo laps with them the entire time. I can't overstate how important Mike Hatchett is to the snowboard community. I'm absolutely honored to have him on the show. Here we go.
I did shoot stuff before snowboard, and the way that it kind of unfolded was I was always into photography.
Yeah.
Always in 7th grade, my dad handed me a camera.
Cool.
And he had an old Minolta camera. And he was like, "Hey, Mike, check this camera out. Shoot a few photos." And I shot some pictures, and we had a dark room in our garage.
Cool.
And I started shooting literally right when I picked up the camera and shot my first roll of film. I was like, this is really cool. I like this.
Dope.
And I developed my first roll of film and printed some photos in our dark room.
From the first roll?
From the first roll, yeah. I thought there was like this one about the drinking fountain. I just turned it on and shut it off, and at like 1/500th of a second, like froze the water. That was
amazing.
It was all infatuated. So I would just, so that just kind of, I just kept shooting. I just basically got addicted to shooting photos. I started shooting surf photos and skate photos, and all my friends, this was in 7th grade. So I'd go to school and shoot my, my friends at school.
Doing school stuff.
Portraits. Yeah, just around the playground and whatever, at lunch break or whatever. Started printing more and more photos, started printing color photos, and then started exploring more into like different photo techniques with printing and stuff like that, just like learning more and more about photography. And in 8th grade, they had a photography class.
Rad.
At our junior high.
Yeah.
And it's the only class I've ever got an A+ in. It was just like, I was like the star student of the class because I was so hooked. I was just hooked. And I had the dark room.
Yeah.
So I could go home, do the assignments, and then go into my darkroom and print. So I kind of had this unfair advantage.
Sure.
So it was cool. But yeah, it was all, my dad is basically who got me into photography.
So I know from Dave's interview that your dad invented something technical early on. Like he was like an engineer, or he was just like a tinkerer, and he did something that was like lucrative.
Yeah,
like,
for him, at the time, he was an officer on a submarine.
Wow.
In the Navy, and he had a master's degree from USC, and he got involved with this company that had this thing that him and his partners, it was called the RCV, and it stood for remote controlled vehicle. Yeah. It was an underwater camera, one of the first. It was way ahead of his time. You're talking the late 70s here.
Rad.
And he had a company called, Hydroponics was his company. It was down in San Diego in Sorrento Valley. And this camera connected to a cable, and it went down in the ocean, and it would take, samples off the ocean floor. This little arm had a little camera on it. So cool. And you could, operate with like a joystick, and you could explore, shipwrecks, and they made lighting. They sold lighting to Jacques Cousteau. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. They're just lighting, underwater lighting.
Sure.
So his company sold all this stuff, and it was him and a friend. They basically hired my dad to be the vice president. And then he eventually became the president of the company. And I think they had 120 employees at one point. And my dad was a very, very intelligent person.
Yeah.
And strict, but very intelligent. But he was a great guy, but it was him. And I think that he was always into photography too, not just because making the RCV and having this underwater camera, but also just he loved to shoot photos.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys got to learn to surf pretty early in your life, is that right? Like you were in Southern California?
Yes.
Yeah. So like you're surfing, and then something happens and you're up in Northern California.
Yeah. So Dave and I grew up down in Southern California. We lived in this town called Solana Beach, which is North County, San Diego, where a lot of the pro snowboarders now live down in Encinitas.
Totally.
Yeah. Dave and I grew up there. I caught my first wave right in Solana Beach at this place called Pillbox, Fletcher Cove. And then we surfed this place, Seaside Reef. That was kind of where we were locals, and learned to surf there. And we skated at Del Mar Skate Ranch. We had memberships to Del Mar Skate Ranch.
Rad.
And there was, Tony Hawk was there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Inouye skates. Tom Inouye, I think it was.
Yeah.
So that was like the early part of pool skating in a park.
Yep.
In a public park. So we had our skate. We had our memberships there. So we would skate and surf. And then, so you asked about going up north.
Yeah.
So in 10th grade, the beginning of 10th grade, Dave and I we started getting in a lot of trouble in 8th grade.
Okay.
9th grade, started getting in more trouble. 10th grade started getting in a lot of trouble.
I just want to know what kind of trouble.
Yeah, well, we just started getting really bad grades and partying a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's other things, but not super bad. But
just trouble.
Trouble for
just
kids.
Like
and my dad wasn't having it. You guys are you're failing out of school.
You're in with the wrong crowd, and you're partying, and you're doing the things that are like, I definitely don't want you doing this.
Exactly.
Shit.
So he moved us. He was at a point in his career with hydro products where he could pretty much retire.
Yeah.
So he moved us up to Lake Tahoe.
And he's young though, right?
Yeah, he's young. He's like 45.
Yeah.
So we're moving to Lake Tahoe. So I didn't want to move.
Yeah,
my brother didn't want to move. I'm like, I live in Solana Beach. Why don't I want to move to Lake Tahoe?
Yeah.
So he moved us there, up here to Tahoe, where I am now.
Yeah.
And my brother got into snowboarding and rock climbing, and then I actually ended up moving back down south.
Oh, you guys were separated.
Yeah. Well, we moved up here together.
Yeah.
And then when I was this would be the second half of 10th grade.
Yeah.
By the first semester of 11th grade, I was being like a little shit. And I basically was like, I'm moving back to Southern California.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, well, you can't. You're 16 years old. You can't leave the house. I'm like, well, yeah, I can, because I'm going to get emancipated. And
really? You actually went through the thing to do it?
I'm going to get emancipated, and will you sign me off? My dad's like,
that's incredible.
Yeah, he's like, whatever, I'll sign you off. So we had to go, I think it was the Superior Court.
Yeah.
And get
it's
a
like
judge
a big
to
deal.
sign off.
Yeah.
So when I was would be my first semester of 11th grade, I moved back down to San Diego to surf and shoot photos and work in a restaurant.
Where did you live?
I lived with these two roommates that were kind of Darryls. And I started as a dishwasher. I got promoted to prep cook. And then I became a line cook. So I was basically a line cook in a restaurant, shooting some photos, not super pro or anything. I was just shooting photos for fun.
Yeah.
Dave at that time had like started, met Tom Burt, Jim Zellers, started getting into snowboarding. He was mentioning to me, hey, I'm starting to do this like snowboard thing.
Yeah.
And while I was down there, I ran into, the guys I live with, we got into some kind of big trouble. Oh, wow. Well, we got robbed by these guys in like ski masks and stuff. And we were doing some stuff we probably shouldn't have been doing at the house. And at that point, I just had this epiphany. I'm a cook in a restaurant. I live with these two derelict roommates. My brother lives in Tahoe. I kind of was like a reset for me. Like at that point I had enough of getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And I moved back to Tahoe, kind of regrouped, and then talked to my dad. I'm like, hey Dad, if I go back down to Southern California and then go to college and take photography courses and get a college degree, will you pay for it? And he's like, I'll pay for it if you move back down. So I ended up moving back down to San Diego.
Rad.
And my dad was like, you have to pay for your own food.
Yeah.
So I'd already worked in restaurants. So I got his job as a busboy and a cook. I was doing both in this one restaurant. I cooked and bussed tables in the evenings 3 nights a week, and then went to photography school and got an associate arts in photography. And during that time, Dave was getting more and more into snowboarding and rock climbing. And then Dave he came down to Joshua Tree on a climbing trip.
Cool.
And he was like, hey, do you want to come out and meet my friend Rick and I to go on to come out climbing for the weekend? And I live right in San Diego. I'm like, I'll drive out for the weekend. I'll come shoot photos. Right. So I went out and I shot photos. Like, I'll shoot some photos for school. So I shot black and white pictures, and he introduced me to climbing, and I started climbing. Oh, this is super cool. I'm like, okay, this is a rad sport. And then I started talking to Dave. We were on the campfire at night. We're camping. I started, so hey, Dave, how long are you down here for? How long are you guys here for? I figured he'd say the weekend. Oh, we're here for 3 months. I'm like, doing what? And he's like, well, we live in the van and camp and climb every day. I'm like, when he said that, I was like, this is amazing. Like, you just live out of your car and climb every day and you don't have to work or do anything. And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, this is cool. How about if I just come out every weekend and shoot photos and keep climbing? So I did that, kept shooting photos, kept climbing. And then when I got out of school, it was only associate arts. I was going to get a business degree, a 4-year degree. Yeah. Got into associate arts. When that was done, moved back to Tahoe, or was headed back towards Tahoe, and decided to flank off to Breckenridge, Colorado.
Interesting.
Before that.
What for?
I just basically, I had heard Breckenridge was a rad snowboard spot, and I'd been up onto while I was in college, I'd come up to snowboard a couple of times at Donner Ski Ranch with my brother. Yeah. He talked me out of skiing. Like, you don't want to try this snowboarding sport. So I tried that, got hooked on snowboarding like most people do. Yeah. And then I was back down in San Diego, and I'm like, well, before I moved to Tahoe, I told Dave, like, before I come to Tahoe, I'm going to live in Breckenridge 1 year. So I moved out there and got a job as a busboy in a restaurant and started shooting photos. And
who were the early guys you shot photos with?
Well, it was weird. I didn't know anybody. I just moved out there. I was a busboy, and I knew my brother, and he knew Tom Burt and Jim Zellers and Bonnie and a couple other people, Palmer. I didn't really know anybody. Right. Myself. So I'm just like busting tables. And one day I was driving over this little pass back behind Breckenridge to go over towards A Basin. There was this kicker on the side of the road. Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to pull over and hit that thing. So I started hitting this thing, and these guys walk out of the house, and it's Nick Perata. It's Nick Perata and his friend Pat Solomon. So we just hit it off instantly. We started sessioning this kicker together. And then one thing led to another. We became friends. I started, hey, I shoot pictures. Can I shoot some photos of you guys? So it was Perata. I started shooting photos. And then Andy Hetzel lived out there. Yep. Zach Bingham. I met him. So I started shooting photos of those guys. And then I basically shot that whole season. I bust tables and shot photos. And then that season, the first issue of Snowboarder magazine came out. Sick. And I submitted photos and got a bunch of stuff published. And then at the end of that season, Pat Solomon, he wasn't like Nick. He wasn't like a pro snowboarder. He was a guy that went to film school. But after snowboarding with him all year, he told me in the spring when we were all kind of parting ways, hey, I went to film school. I want to be a director. do you and your brother, this is totally off the cuff, do you and your brother want to make a snowboard movie next year? I'm like, a snowboard movie? And I'm like, okay, I don't know how to film. I know how to shoot photos, but I don't know how to film. So he's like, well, I know how to film. I can teach you. It's just like shooting photos. You just load the film in. It's film.
Yeah.
It's aperture. It's focus. It's framing. It's the same thing. So he asked us if we wanted to make a movie. And I'm like, well, let me talk to my brother about it and think of how we can get some funds and talk about it. And I was like, that's a rad idea. So I came back to Tahoe that summer. I had finished Breckenridge, came back to Tahoe, and my dad, when we were in, I think it was 7th or 8th grade, he gave us $7,000 each. Is like this is your money for your future. I'm going to put it in stocks for you and invest it. And then when you get older, if you want to use it to start something or whatever, you can use it. And that $7,000 turned into $15,000 a piece. So we had $30,000 a piece. And we're like, it was like roulette, 30,000 on black. Let's make Totally Bored. So we just did it. We just threw the money down, 30 grand.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We called up Wave Rave because I had met Brett Conrad from Wave Rave. I met him in Boulder.
Right.
And then we got I think we got Bolle goggles.
Yep.
Roosh gloves.
Yep.
Kemper snowboards.
Unreal.
No money. It was all product.
How did you get Kemper? Who would have Kemper
It
been?
was, I think Perata had the contact.
Yeah.
And this was, and mind you, this is all product. Like no one's like, we're not giving you a dime, but we'll give you product.
Right.
So we got the $30,000. We bought film.
Yeah.
And we shot our first test roll in Tahoe. And luckily, I knew this guy. My friend Craig. There's the Beck brothers. They're kind of legends in the Tahoe area. Craig Beck and Greg Beck. Beck's Rock at Squaw is named after Greg.
Yeah.
He jumped this 120-foot cliff, frying on acid back in the day as a poster.
Wow.
So it's classic. And then his brother is a cinematographer, and he made this movie called Daydreams, which is an early ski movie, this super dope ski movie. And Dave and I were lucky enough to get connected with it. We met them early on. And Craig kind of mentored Dave and I when we made a snowboard video. He's like, hey, I can help you get an account at Monaco at San Francisco. That's where they do the film to tape transfers. And you can use my credit card or, and you can pay, you can like build a rapport with those guys. And eventually they'll give you net 30.
Sick.
And he kind of just walked me through how he shot, where he would set his tripod up, when he would handhold, he just kind of like walked me through shooting.
Wow.
Gave me some pointers and kind of just mentored Dave and I to start. And then we just took it from there. We just kind of learned from there.
So Perata at that time is your good buddy.
Yes.
Farmer's his good buddy.
Yeah.
That's the film right there. You
Yeah.
got Perata and Farmer.
Yeah.
And the budget's coming out of your bank account, which is insane.
Yeah.
Did you guys go somewhere? Did you go to Alaska or something?
With the end of the year, Nick went to Alaska to Denali.
Yeah.
And they camped. But we shot most.
That's the Moose's Tooth.
Moose's
thing,
Tooth,
right?
and he jumps that big fatty at the end.
Yeah.
And that's like a camping trip. And that was inspired by Tom Burt and Jim Zellers because they had been up to the Ruth Glacier prior to that.
Right.
So they were our inspiration to go to Alaska.
Cool.
And then we went to Mount Baker. And we went to It was basically shot at Mount Baker, Breckenridge, in like Loveland Pass area in Tahoe.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, like Dave and I go up to Baker, and we're in like day glow, head to toe, pink Koflak hard shells. We look like Damian Sanders.
Totally.
12-inch stances all sideways.
Yeah.
And Perata's in all black.
Yep.
And we meet Rankwit. And he's just like looking at my brother and I like going, but we ended up becoming good friends. We're friends with Rankwit. We ended up filming with him. But it was funny. It was like these like dudes with these iridium Oakleys, and then you got Farmer and Perata. Farmer was sporting a little bit of day glow, but it was just funny because we were the styles that we were, the hard boots and the day glow.
California meets Washington, Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. And then we started catching on. Eventually I shed the hard shells, and Selaznik talked me into like getting rid of the hard shell boots. And I started kind of looking at myself with the day glow and the stance. I'm like, this is kind of whack.
Sure.
Yeah. But at the time I thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
And the gear every year is getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
And there is an advantage to hard boots. I used to ride them. I used to ride them once a year just to like get that edge control that you get. That you forget, you can really pencil a board.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then once you've done that for one day, your soft boot carving improves 100%.
For sure.
Definitely. But so the Farmer Perata thing, who else is helping on that film? Because you produce it with somebody else, right?
Yeah, well, Pat Solomon, who I had met.
Who said, he
was the producer. director, editor. He was basically running the show. I was the director of photography.
Yeah.
That was my title. But Pat and I filmed the whole movie.
And who did the animation?
That was Fred Stuhr.
Rest in peace, right? Like
rest in peace. He unfortunately passed
yeah.
away. And he, I believe, after the claymation was epic. And that
it was epic.
Yeah,
it
that was like a
unbelievable.
school project. He did it for free.
Yeah.
And then I believe he went on to do that Tool video. I think he did one of the videos on Undertow.
No way.
The one with that kind of, if I'm not mistaken, we should maybe look it up and make sure. But I think that was. He did the Tool video.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the one that's in Under with that kind of weird puppet thing kind of moving all
Absolutely.
trippy.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the animation, it was like high budget. Like it was like surprisingly good.
Yeah.
Like there's like snow bikes and machine guns and it's insane.
Totally.
It's insane. And it made that movie just so much more. But did the movie do well? Like, did you have distribution or something? I remember seeing Totally Bored after I'd seen TB2.
Yeah, it didn't do well. I mean, we didn't really have distribution. We made VHS copies, and we hooked up with this company called GRB Entertainment, Gary Benz Entertainment, out of LA.
Cool.
And they did some TV deals for us. And we were able to license some of the footage. I mean, some of the movie in its entirety for television. Wow. And we sold probably, I don't know how many VHSs we sold. We hooked up with Surf Video Network. They were an early.
I remember those guys.
Yeah, they were an early video distributor. But basically, we didn't make any money off the movie. And then after that, the next year was coming up, and I had met Jerry and Artie from Fall Line Films, Jerry Dugan and Artie Crable.
Had they made Western Front?
They had made Western Front, and then the next year they made. The year we made Totally Bored, they had made Western Front that spring. Okay. And then the year we made Totally Bored, they made. I'm trying to think of what the movie was, but
Exile is the next one.
Yes, they made Snow. Thank you. I can't believe I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
They made Snowboards in Exile while we were making Totally Bored. And the next year, and that was the first year Squaw allowed snowboarding officially. Because when we made the first year, well, actually, it was the Totally Bored year. Was the first year they allowed it when they made Exile and we made Totally Bored. Yeah. Because the spring before that, Squaw, when they made Western Front. If you'll notice, a lot of that footage is filmed at Squaw. Yeah, and that was when Squaw allowed snowboarding on a trial basis.
So that's the first.
That was the first.
Yeah, because those guys, from what I've heard, were the worked for the mountain, going around filming people. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you'd go in the lodge, and there'd be your footage there to buy for whatever.
They had snow motion.
Yeah, snow motion.
They would sit there at the top of the video. Oh, can I shoot you there? And then they're like,
they fall. You can't on a run. And at that time, there's no cell phones. There's nothing. So people that are coming up here on a sunny day are going to pay $100 for a 5-minute clip of them on the mountain. Of course. Then for Jerry and Artie to shoot them. And then Jerry and Artie had the cameras. Yeah. So they started shooting my brother, Damien. Yes. Selaznick, Perata, Tucker Franson, Chris Roach. Yes. I mean, those are just a few of the guys. His brother Monty. I'm leaving guys out. So they started shooting those guys and made Western Front. We made Totally Bored and Exile, and then they made Exile. And then after that year, I ended up, the next year we weren't really teed up to make another video because Totally Bored didn't, we financially couldn't do it. So I ended up working for Fall Line as a cinematographer on Critical Condition and Riders in the Storm. Got it.
So I worked for them for 2 years as a cinematographer, mainly shooting my brother and, Tom Burt, Selaznick, Damien, a lot of stuff around Tahoe. I went to Austria on one trip with Palmer and Selaznick, I believe it was. And we shot like Jeff Brushy over there in the pipe. It was super icy. We went to Ishkul and we didn't get hardly any footage. It was just like contest stuff. And it was like icy. But we shot a lot of stuff around Tahoe. And I learned, I got kind of learned more about shooting, getting to a chance to run more film through the camera and go through the motions of being in the backcountry and just learning how to set up, where to go.
Those Fall Line films were it. That was it.
They were it.
They were it.
Yeah, they were it. They were it. Definitely for a while.
Yeah, because at that point they were shooting film still, right? So there's not people out there with handy cams.
No.
Making the little, secondary films. It's Fall Line was it. You'd wait for the next year. Critical Condition was like super anticipated after the Snowboarders in Exile thing because it was just. I remember being so hungry for snowboard footage. Yeah. And then Snowboarders in Exile over-delivered. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was like 2 hours long or whatever.
Yeah.
It was long, and it was like traveling the world. It was like all of a sudden there was this new genre.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah. Jerry Dugan's, he's a good director and storyteller, and he had the narration in
and
there,
the voice,
and all that. Yeah. And I got to a point with those guys where, we had done Critical Condition, and then Riders on the Storm.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I just got this point of working with those guys. I'm like, hey, Jerry, do you ever, want help? Can I edit?
Yes.
Can I help license music?
Some direction. Can
I help produce?
Film,
I don't want to just be a camera guy. And Jerry basically said to me, you're only ever going to be a camera guy. And that kind of lit a fire under my ass.
Yeah, because you've already done it with Totally Bored.
You've
already done the whole thing.
Yeah, I had produced, but I knew how to produce, and I'd never been to business school, and I just learned the ropes.
Yeah.
But that really lit a fire under my ass when he said that.
Yeah.
And at that point, I started being like, well, maybe I should just make my own movie. And this one day, Dave and I were at Squaw. I think we were riding with Noah, just cruising around, and we see Sione, and we started kind of just talking to Sione, and Sione kind of looks at me, and he just says something kind of like, you and Mac, you guys should make your own movie.
Yeah.
Maybe team up with Mac Dog or something. And I think he said Mac Dog, or you should make your own movie or something.
Right.
And that was like, I was already thinking that. And then right then my brother and we were at the end of the day. And then Dave and I started talking. Like Dave was like, I'm calling Mac Dog. Let's make a movie. So we called Mac Dog. Like, do you want to start a company? And Dave and I kind of pre-talked about it. Like we're more backcountry, more big mountain, like whatever, big mountain,
yeah.
more powder, cliff.
And Mac Dog had already been making like New Kids on the Twalk and Pocahontas or
exactly, and Hard, the Hungry, and the Homeless.
Hard, the Hungry, and the Homeless.
Like, which Dave was already in.
Yeah,
Dave was in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, David had a strong.
He's got like a free ride part in that movie.
Exactly,
It's
and Mac
incredible.
Dog hardly ever would shoot free riding.
Right.
So we already knew Mac Dog from that. We had hit it out with Mac Dog. We always had a good rapport with him. So we called him up like, dude, do you want to make a movie? And we'll do a lot of the backcountry, a lot of the powder footage.
Yeah.
You shoot a lot of the freestyle, and we'll just mix it all in. And let's nothing against Jerry Dugan or Fall Line, but no narration.
Right.
No storytelling.
Right.
Just video, like people's parts, like a Selaznick part, a Terry Hawkinson part, a Jamie Lynn part.
We were starting to get that from so there was the Powell videos that had all sorts of quirky, weird, and then a clown says a thing, and then there was the H Street videos that Mac Dog was producing that was just no nonsense progression.
Yeah.
It was like, no, we want to see this. This is sick. So you go talk to him at that point and say like, let's just do the best of all. The best of both worlds. And that was TB2?
That was TB2. We did TB2, and we teamed with Mac Dog, did TB2, and we had an insane winter that year.
Yes.
Really, really good winter. And again, we got some sponsorships, actually. We were able to call up, Burton and a few of the other sponsors that are on there, and they threw us a little bit of change. It wasn't a ton. I forget how much money we rose, $30,000, $35,000. It wasn't much.
I mean, it's the same amount of money that Jacques had for, Chill or whatever he shot. Like he got so much money for that project.
Yeah.
What you guys put together for $30,000 is again the same as the Exile thing.
Yeah.
It was like we weren't expecting that. When TB2 came out, we were like, oh my God, this is a sea change different. It's like The Art of Flight or whatever. It was like all of a sudden there was like such good footage.
Yeah.
Because even Mac Dog's early films, they're fun to watch 100%, but they're kind of sloppy. They're not like,
Mac Dog at that point they were a little sloppy, and he didn't have that much experience shooting 16.
Right.
And we're like, hey, and that's another thing I talked to Mac Dog about. Let's up the production quality. We'll work together to better our shooting. Let's just deliver a better product. And that's how we sold it to the writers. And the writers too, they were, again, nothing against Jerry, but we were, it's like Rippy, Jamie Lynn, Terry Hawkinson, Daniel Frank, Tom Burt, my brother, Goodwill. It was just like Aaron Vincent. It was just like we just got all the guys to come over to our side, and we shot the video that when it wasn't. And so at that point it was just we mixed all that in. And I remember too, I was starting to like formulate in my idea, like, okay, we're gonna get Burton, we're gonna get whoever, we're gonna get Oakley or whatever. I forget who the eyewear sponsor was. We're gonna get I think it was Hendo was our clothing sponsor, and we're going to put them on the video box cover, the VHS cover. We're going to put their logo in the very beginning of the film. We're going to give them a credit in the end credits. We're going to we're going to feature their rider. Because this was, at that time, no one was really like, how do you sell a sponsorship for a movie? Because not that many people were going out and asking for money.
Right.
And I remember making the teaser and going to the trade show in Vegas.
Yeah.
And Transworld was there. And it was like Fran Richards, Kevin Kinnear, John Foster, I think, were all three there. And they were at the booth, and MacDog and I go up and I talk to the guys, and I'm like talking to like the heavyweights at the time in the magazine world.
Huge.
And I had known Foster from when he worked at Breakout magazine.
Oh, cool.
And I knew him, but we didn't know him great. So I have this VHS tape, which is the TB2 teaser, in my backpack. And I go, hey, you guys ever think about sponsoring a snowboard video? And they kind of look at me like, what do you mean? I go, well, you sponsor a video and you give us ads, 4-page ads in your magazine, and we'll let you be the presenting sponsor. And they kind of like look at me sideways again, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, and they're kind of like, I don't know if we're into that. I go, how about I make you a deal? How about if I put this VHS tape on the player right now? And if it's not the best trailer you've ever seen for a snowboard video, if it's the best thing you've ever seen, how about we make a deal? And they kind of look at each other and chuckle. Okay, put it in. So I put it in, and the thing ended, and they just looked at me like, okay, let's make a deal.
That is such a rad story. That's
like,
amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Because you're inventing this thing. Like, I know when I was talking with Tom Burt, he's talking about, the thing that Jeremy Jones is famous for. We invented that like a whole 10 years ahead. We went to the 7 peaks. We had that bucket list. And they invented the trip, like calling places and saying, look, if you give us accommodation and lift tickets, you're going to get coverage in the magazines. Yeah. And like handwriting letters and mailing a letter, right? Like, and so
faxing,
it's hard to fathom. But before that, if you were a filmer, like if you were Jacques, you had to make a movie with somebody's rider, then go to their sponsor afterwards and say, how would you like to sponsor this movie or give me, sponsor my next movie? That's what Jacques did, right? Yeah. And like, you guys created this whole new thing, like those logos up front. Yeah. Like
it was inspired originally by when we were one of the first people to do it, but definitely inspired by Fall Line. Okay, like Jerry because Jerry had done the logos. Right, we basically was learning, looking at his stuff, but also the magazine thing. There was Snowboarder and Transworld. Yeah, Snowboarder was already working with Doug Palladini at that point was running Snowboarder. Yeah, he was working with Jerry and Artie. Oh, cool. So I didn't want to go there. Like I can't go to Jerry. I can't go to Snowboarder. I've already taken half their crew of riders. I can't just go try and talk to Palladini at Snowboarder. Plus it just wasn't a cool move. Yeah. And Transworld, the way I saw it, was wide open terrain. Like they were a dope mag. Yeah. And they weren't sponsoring any videos yet.
That's crazy. So that was the very first Transworld sponsored video is TB2.
I don't know. I think it was probably the first one they'd ever sponsored.
Yeah, of course. There's nothing from before
in the ad, as far as like Transworld presents a movie.
I like that. Yeah. Cause then you get the ad space and which is like, then we see it. Like that was the thing. There was a complete, if you would have sold merch, we would have bought the t-shirts. You know what I mean? Like that, it was this start of this monolith of, we premiered those movies for probably all the way to TB10. Yeah. Right? Like we would rent the venue. Yeah. It'd be an arena sometimes. It'd be like a theater sometimes. Yeah. And those were so well attended. Yeah. And I think pretty early on it was like, because when do you and MacDog split? Does he work until TB4 or something?
Yeah, so we did TB2, 3, and 4 together.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after that, we were really getting on a roll too. Yeah. I mean, we were on a roll. Like we were selling a lot of videos, and it became a pretty. I would say it was a good business model. It made money. I never got into it to be rich or try and be, and I am not rich, but I never, I didn't get in it with the money, but it was a good business model. It made money. Yeah. And at TB4 at the end of the season, we premiered at Spreckles like we always did. And it was super well attended. People loved the movie. Get ready to do TB5 and MacDog was like, hey, Mike, I got to tell you, I don't want to do another movie with you because I really
Did you tell him you'll always be a filmer, man?
No, I was kind of bummed. I'm like, dude, we work so good together. We got this totally rad thing going. He's like, well, I just don't like. He's like, I don't want to pursue the big mountain riding like you're doing. Like you love to go, you want to go to Alaska and, you know, Tom Burt and your brother and Goodwill and Tex. He's like, I want to do just freestyle movies. And I'm like, okay, I respect that. And then I started talking, well, what about standard? And he's like, well, Mike, if you want, let's do this. Let's split up. You keep the name Standard. You can keep making movies, and I'm going to continue to do MacDog. And then, but we just own the first 3 movies together. That's all he said. I'm like, okay, we own the rights to all the footage and the movies. And he just, dude, no, that was just a handshake and that was it. He thought of the name Standard.
Wow.
I didn't. So I was just like, that was like a total bro move by MacDog. Like here's Standard Films, you take it. I'm doing MacDog, and there was never like a lawyer involved or any bad blood. Wow. It was like, been rad working with you, and then from that day on, we premiered we still premiered our movies together, Spreckles, every time, and
the both of you.
He would premiere the MacDog movie, and I'd premiere the Standard movie, and we'd do a double premiere at Spreckles, so we'd share the cost of the theater, which wasn't cheap,
right?
And the video projection, and all that's like a 1,200 seater theater or whatever it was. We'd fill it,
and
you'd have a bunch of MacDog fans there, a bunch of Standard. When everyone would sit through both movies, it was a rad vibe.
It was such a rad vibe.
And MacDog we're still good friends. I still surf with him and work with him, and I was just always stoked on that, because you always hear about people in business and bad things happen in business.
Snowboarder versus trans world, right? Like it's like they're trying to do little.
It could be anything. I mean, MacDog at that point could have been, dude, you can't keep the name Standard. Right. I'm over it. Start your own new company.
Sure.
This is dissolved, but he didn't do that.
Yeah.
So to this day, I'm like indebted to him for just not. It's rad when people do stuff like that.
And the TB series, like TB5 is probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite one. TB9 is up there too. I love the series, obviously. And every time I watch, any of them, I'm like, oh my God, it's so nostalgic. I'm working in the shop at that time, so I'm hearing the soundtrack over and over again. And but I remember feeling like there was like a battle for riders, right? Like if you guys had riders that were excelling at freestyle, then they might want to like jump to the full freestyle movie.
Yes.
Right. Like, so you guys are kind of, it seems, now this is just a guess, but it feels like you guys were farming like the next big talent guys, and they would go through your movies and then they would land in MacDog's movies.
Yeah. Depending on the rider too. Like it would be, a lot of people do that. Like, like Rippy, for instance, if you take him, he ended up being more of the Standard movies because he ended up going to Alaska and kind of doing more big cliff drops. And then you had certain guys that would flank off with MacDog that were more specifically freestyle riders. And it actually ended up working out perfectly. Because it's just like you had these guys that was like, JP Walker is not probably going to want to go up to Alaska and ride Cordova Peak with Tom Burt.
Right.
And Tom Burt's not going to go to Utah and do a kink rail. Right. So it's like it worked out like perfect. It's like, and it was really cool because it really, in the end, it was a good thing because us being together was great. But at the time, there wasn't that many filmmakers out there. There was only us, and Justin Hoisnick was starting to come on the scene. But it was like these two, I don't know. We had like this two of us. It's like there was plenty of riders and people out there to split up.
Yeah, it's like when Apple splits or something. You know what I mean? It's like it's just good for everybody.
It was good for everybody.
Then there's just more good movies out there. Yeah,
and there was times where I was like, I wanted to work with Kevin Jones, and he committed to MacDog for a year, or Kevin worked with us for a year, and MacDog wanted to work with him. Or maybe it was Terrier for a year.
Oh, right.
But it wasn't really, it never really got, and luckily at that point, by the time TB6 was coming along in 7, you really started seeing, there was more riders coming on the scene. And then Burton and other companies, Sims, they started kind of figuring it out. Like we were like, okay, so this season, like talking to Sims, I'm going to work with Aaron Vincent and Noah Selaznick.
Right.
And Noah, I mean, he was always bros with MacDog and super sick, obviously was an amazing freestyle rider, but he started really falling in love with Alaska.
Big time.
And that's one of the reasons I think that Noah kind of ended up shooting with us more, because Noah and I and Johan and like Tom Burt, we started doing these like every year going to Alaska, and Noah just, as I did, fell in love with riding the steeps in Alaska. Like that's why we went.
Yeah.
Just to ride POW. I mean, we're there to film, of course, and I'm addicted to filmmaking. I'm also addicted to riding powder. And once you get a taste of like the Chugach and a steep spine and a slough, it's insane. So it just drives you like you want more.
Yeah.
It's like heroin or whatever. It's like surfing a perfect wave. Like
absolutely.
Where's the best place to snowboard in the world? Valdez, Alaska, hands down.
Yeah.
So I think
especially at that time, right?
At that time, yes.
Because now it's changed. I think Johan just told me, maybe on mic actually, that he saved his money and he went to Alaska, like with tourists, I guess. Like he just got in a heli.
Johan.
Johan. Like years after everything had settled down, he saved his money. He went up there and he was like, "This is crazy how limited it is compared to what we were doing."
Totally.
Yeah, like it was just all of a sudden rules were in that were not there before, and there was like the Yahoo cowboy pilots that you guys worked with. It just didn't happen anymore.
No. Yeah, no.
And still to this day, right? Like nobody's ever ridden super spines again.
No.
That's it.
No. And Segway was there for the photo.
Yeah. Hey, how are you, man? Good to see you again. Sick. Oh yeah, those photos were insane.
Yeah.
That footage.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it could have kept progressing that much.
What's up, Zeddy?
Yeah, we can just pause this, man. Listen, huh?
Okay, you can pause it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Just pause it for a second.
Yep. See you, Aaron.
Are you working the rest of the week, Zeddy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know what's up.
Yeah, I'll keep you in touch on those other jobs. Yeah. Okay, later.
So the formula you have with the TB series is epic. You don't change it through the whole thing, really. Like Totally Bored, obviously, is its own movie.
Yeah.
But TB2 is fire. And then all the way, how many did you do?
21.
Oh, my God. Double decade.
Yeah. But it wasn't TB the whole time. Once we got to TB10, Optograph TB10.
Right.
Then the next movie was Notice to Appear.
Yeah.
So we basically...
So the standard films go into the... Yeah.
It goes all the way. Standard films goes all the way through to 2112.
Yeah.
But we stopped doing the TB movies after 10. We just figured...
Did you use the same formula, though? Like, were they...
Basically was, riders. And then we did some location stuff, too. I mean, there's some location. There's some, like, pieces and paradox. We have, like, the convex roll segment. And there's, like, a Russia segment. Mm-hmm. In that movie, and there's some segment location stuff, but for the most part it's rider segment driven,
right?
Almost in its
What's
entirety.
Segment location stuff, like if it, like a day at Jackson or whatever, so you've got like the group, like kind of the old fall line thing, some stuff. Were there financial incentives that started to creep in, like, hey, you know what, we could go to Chamonix if like these guys will pay us to come profile their mountains or anything like that?
Never really. No, there was never really financial incentives. We would get free lift tickets.
Right.
And some stuff.
Let's talk early ups. Like, let's talk TB2 and like how you guys actually just like ruled Lake Tahoe. Like that is an era that will never be repeated. Right. Because of just how busy it is now and how little mountains really care about, like, they don't want you filming crazy cliff stunts under the lifts. Like, they don't want that at all. Their videos to promote their thing are like fashion models sunning themselves.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You can get early ups to, like, Warren Miller. They'll get early ups to the Warren Miller ski movie. But
his kid is still doing it, Warren Miller? Yeah.
Well, he sold it to now I think Outside owns them, I believe.
Okay.
So Warren Miller ski movie squash segment, that's something different that still gets done today. But in TB2, we were getting early ups from the marketing director there at the time was Kim Cronkite. She would give us early ups, and we would get a lot of good footage actually from Squaw. TB2, a lot of footage came from Squaw. Yeah. And one thing too that was different than, let's say, when Mac Dog started going, when his movies, I want to say 1998 or 99, when Heine started building the really big jumps.
Yes.
And all snowboard videos too, when you really started building these giant cheese wedges and stuff was getting just gigantic.
Yes.
When we made TB2, you ride up the chair at Squaw and like, I'll just jump off that 10-foot rock and do a switchback one or whatever, or do a backside 3 off that thing or do a little whatever. Yeah. And so it was more conducive towards the filming we were doing, because I just go up the chair with Selaznick, and he would just do rad stuff right off the lift, and it would make the movie. And we were also getting early ups. Like we would get a lot of early ups. Now we'd have like an hour and a half jump on the public about, which is not much.
Are you kidding me? That's forever.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's forever. Like an hour and a half at a sunny resort that's got 2 feet of fresh. That's priceless.
Yeah, and once the thing is, and obviously now it was priceless. Yeah, and a lot of now, obviously, the ski patrol, and rightfully so.
Yes.
Once it's open to the public, it's open to everybody. You can't shoot in some. Although Warren Miller 2 years ago was on Silverado, and they left it closed for 2 or 3 days while they shot an entire segment there. And in TB2, we were shooting there. I actually worked on this 3D movie with Aaron Chang that never ended up being, I think, shown on like this Knott's Berry Farm. It was like the amusement park.
Yeah.
It was like a 3D snowboard film with like a music video, this band called Dig. And it was like, it ended up being like this short film. It was going to be like a whole feature, but I was the director of photography, and I was shooting a bunch of this 3D footage.
Whoa.
And they left Broken Arrow as a run at Squaw.
Yeah.
And we got early ups to Squaw, and they literally closed it for an entire day while we shot this 3D movie. So they roped off all of Broken Arrow while we could shoot this footage.
I got to get my hands on that movie and just like premiere it at a 3D
if you could even still get it. But it's just funny. But nowadays they would never leave. Any snowboard film company would let you like close off Broken Arrow for a day while you go film there.
It just
would never happen.
Yeah. So the power dynamic shifted, right?
Yes.
Like that it was like, the marketing department could say, oh, these guys shooting here, and rightfully so. Like I know, like the Palisades, I know Squaw Valley from Western Front. Like I was like, we got to go there.
Yeah.
Like and I could speak probably for tens of thousands of kids in landlocked small town, tiny bunny hill places that were like Squaw Valley.
Yeah.
We got to go there. Tahoe got its name from your films, right? Like,
our films, right. Mac Dog, Fall Line Films,
yes,
ski movies, Greg Stump, Warren Miller, they were all put in Squaw on the map. Craig Beck with Daydreams originally, and then it just was this. It was just it's a different time now. They don't need.
Yeah, let's talk this hour and a half. So you've got. So are you showing up an hour early in the parking lot?
Yeah, we're showing up at dark.
And
riding up and meeting ski patrol.
Yes.
Have a quick chat with them.
Yeah.
Hey, where do you guys want to go? Well, we would usually say the night before we want to go to Grand Chief Peak.
Yeah.
We want to go to Mainline Pocket. We want to go to Palisades. We want to go to KT. We want to go to Broken Arrow. And they would say, okay, you guys are standard crews going to Broken Arrow with 3 riders. We'd meet them.
Would they come with the walkie-talkies?
Yeah, they just go out there. They go out there and
with
the walkies, and they go, we're going to go out and do our Avi route. Yeah. We're going to throw a couple bombs. And the guy would say, most of the guys are friends of ours. He'd say, hey, once I'm out the bottom of the bowl and I go over the rollover, you guys can have it. So he'd just be like, and so we would do that. And then that's kind of how it went down. You work with ski patrol in marketing. You can still get early ups these days, but just not as frequently. And they don't, Squaw, aka Palisades Tahoe, or I guess the new name. Yeah. They don't really need any more people there. So it's harder. It's more difficult to get early ups there. Yeah. But a lot of the early, like in TB3, there's a whole session with Tex on the Palisades.
Yes.
And that was actually Palisades were closed at that time. It was May. And we got a late season dump, like 1.5 feet or 2 feet. And then we actually, in Siberia, Shirley Lake was open, but that whole side of the mountain was closed. And we actually were allowed to walk over to Palisades and in session the Palisades because it was May and there was like 2 feet of fresh and that whole side of the mountain was closed. And they're like, oh yeah, you guys just walk over there. And Tom Day, who's a well-known, fairly famous skier in Warren Miller movies, one of the best cinematographers in the business. He worked for Standard Films forever, and he's a cinematographer still for Warren Miller. He was the one that got us the early ups, and there's a shot of him in the end credits doing chimney shoot on skis. It's the only ski shot in the Standard movie except TB8.
Yeah,
with C.R. Johnson, but he does chimney shoot in the end credits, and that was that day.
Of which movie? I'm going to put that
TB3.
in there. TB3.
Yeah, and he was the one. Hey, Mike, I got chimney shoot is a famous line at Squaw.
Yeah,
everyone wants to do chimney. Not everyone, but people with the ability.
You want to
nail chimney. If you've got the ability, you want to do chimney.
Yeah.
Whether you're a skier, it's not even been done by that many snowboarders. When it's proper, when it's like the 40-footer out the bottom or 30-footer.
Yeah.
and a cornice drop at the top. I'm not talking when it's filled in and there's a 10-foot at the bottom. I'm talking like when it's the real deal.
Yeah.
And Tom Day told me, hey, Mike, I've been looking at Chimney. I wanted to do it tomorrow. I got permission from Patrol. You want to bring some riders up there? We'll film. And so that Tom Day doing Chimney in the end credits of TV3, he nailed that line, skied over, grabbed his pack, and then helped shoot the rest of the day with me for standard.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was that day. So
when did your brother do Hatchett line?
Oh, that was in TB5.
TB5
on the on the fingers, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that it might have even been named something else or wasn't named before that.
I think
it just never really had a name.
Yeah.
I filmed it and Dave just greased it. He just wrote, he'd been looking at it, was filled in perfect. He made a few turns into it and then just straight ran out the bottom and everyone was going up the chair.
Yeah.
And then Rob and Scott Gaffney are friends of ours and they basically, when Rob wrote the book, he just, like, I don't know if it was Scott or Rob or whoever named it, but maybe it was after that line he had when he just greased it that one day.
Yeah, I think that was it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way those things go down.
Yeah. It's a cool line. There's a lot of rad lines at Squaw. There's a lot of rad lines between Squaw and Alpine. There's lines. The big line that Dave does in left of the tram chute in TB5.
Yeah.
I believe it's called Sylvester's.
Yeah.
The snow face into that little narrow chute. That's another, but that's an out of bounds. That's a full. That comes into the ski area, so it's a permanent closure.
Permanent closure, yeah, which is a different deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's out of bounds because it does come back into the ski area.
So how do you film that and put it in your movie and not get in trouble?
Well, yeah, you jump in the back of a truck and after you do it and put a blanket over you and speed out of the parking lot and.
For real?
And yeah, when the security guard starts coming for you.
Aren't you friends with Patrol and the security guard and all those guys?
We had it all planned out.
Yeah.
Dave rode to the bottom. There was a truck waiting. He just literally hopped in the back of a Tundra, or not a Tundra, but back of a Toyota with a camper shell and literally jumped in, threw a blanket over himself, driver, shut the tailgate.
So there's a chance nobody saw it. There's a chance that there was somebody chasing him.
There was someone chasing him.
Oh,
there was, yes.
Wow.
And then the thing too is they also, when you're in the parking lot, what are you guys filming? Oh, because Tom Day's like, we're just filming snow plows blowing all the snow and stuff.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Said he was shooting. So you shot the Hatchet line from the parking lot angle, probably, right?
Well, the Hatchet line I shot from basically exhibition, kind of below exhibition chair, kind of KT goes up and you have the fingers. I just shot it just a little bit to the left, kind of a counter slope.
Got
across.
It. Yeah.
Yeah.
And said he shot it from the parking lot.
He probably shot it from the parking lot because he didn't want to get up, get out of bed. Yeah.
Well, you guys are hard workers.
Yeah, we liked to get up early back in the day. It was we would like to beat. For one, we wanted to get the good light. As far as a filmer and me being cinematography being my passion.
Yeah.
It was all about filming in the best light possible. And in Tahoe, most of the best light is northeast facing. Most of the best slopes face northeast.
Okay.
So the best terrain is northeast, and that's morning light. So a lot of the best stuff is out of the sun by 11:30.
Okay.
So you want to be there at sunrise because that's kind of a short window.
Yeah.
The terrain. It was a combination of the terrain features in Tahoe and wanting to shoot the best light, and then it came down to also beating other film crews there.
Yeah. Jeremy Jones said in episode 1 that he went out filming with you recently, like maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and you were like, what time do you want to meet up? He's like, I don't know, 9:30. You're like, what are you talking about? All the other crews are going to be out there.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no crews anymore, dude.
Yeah.
We're going to have the place to ourselves.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. Because it's funny you say that because there's no crews. Not like there used to be. There was the heyday. But yeah, it started with no crews in Donner.
Yeah.
Like us being literally the only people there.
And you're filming on the resort. Like, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it gets tracked way too quick now. Like, and not only they left Broken Arrow closed for us that day, but you could also just go up Broken Arrow at like noon and traverse out the traverse, and no one's really hitting the stuff.
Right.
I mean, you could kind of ride freshies or somewhat fresh, all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as snowboarding blows up, now you're starting competing with crews because you guys have documented all this insane terrain. People move to Tahoe with their handy cams. Handy cams are getting better.
Yeah.
Crews are starting to, maybe up their equipment because they know what's up. And we were just talking about it with Sedway about people build humongous features.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I want it's not like he said, I want exclusivity to it. It's like
Yeah.
Heine spent a lot of time making something that was world class.
Totally.
And to have somebody just show up and shoot photos of it.
Yeah.
That's bad form, really.
Kind of bad form. Yeah. Definitely bad form. And then, and there was that. And then just, the crew, it got to the point where 96, 97 started getting kind of like almost to be a factor.
Yes.
Like you have to be, especially certain hits at Donner.
Sure.
Like stuff that whatever, the Johan jump or this hit or that hit, and there'd be like people there.
Yeah.
So you'd want to beat them there.
Yeah.
Especially the I-80 drop. A lot of people call it the half dome. That's probably the most.
Yeah, I saw that.
That is probably the most sought after hit when it's in good form.
Right.
So I think the last time I shot it was in Black Winter with Lonnie Kauk and Andreas Wig.
Rad.
And I kind of have the technique to go shoot that place. Like I know, so you can park over by Boreal and you can snowshoe all the way in.
Yeah.
What I like to do is you get, I had Wade, rest in peace, one of my homies that used to run stand with me. I go, dude, we're going to pull off by Boreal. We're all going to jump in the back of your truck. You're going to drive down the freeway, and right at the I-80 drop, you're just going to pull over, and we're going to jump out.
Yeah.
And then just walk right over to the I-80 drop.
It's so close.
Yeah. So that's how we did it. And we got up at like 3:30 in the morning that one day. And literally, we go down and we get out of the truck. We drive down. I set up on the knob and I'm like, oh, we can just chill here, wait for the sun to come up a little bit more. And Lonnie's like, no, I want to get up there and scope it out. He goes up with his headlamp with Andreas, gets to the top, literally gets to the top, starts kind of looking over, and it's still dark. It's like 5 a.m. It's not even light for another hour and a half.
Yeah.
And 2 dudes are coming up in headlamps. Skiers, another crew.
No way.
Yeah. And this is the last time I shot it. They were coming up to hit it.
Yeah. That early in the morning.
And
what a bummer for them. Or it would have been a bummer for you if they were already there.
Yeah, we said sorry, like, sorry, we were already there.
Yes.
And then, they obviously bowed out because we were there first. And then 2 other crews came by to hit it that day.
Wow.
And in TB2, if you look in the movie TB, there's like the shot of my brother and it says original. And he like underlines it.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny because that's the first time anyone had ever hit the I-80 drop. And
wow.
Dave and I had we had been looking at the I-80 drop for that whole winter.
Yeah.
And talking with Tom Bird about it. We're like, dude, that looks like a sick drop.
Yeah. Because
we climb out there too. There's rock climbing in the
So it's kind of like a surfer seeing the thing at low tide. Like if you rock climbed it in the summer, you know where to avoid, you know what's
totally. We were looking at it going, that's a sick hit. Someone should hit that. No, and at this point, no one had ever been off of it. No one had ever jumped it.
Yeah.
So we actually looked at it. We had been looking at it. So we decide the day to go hit it. I think it was with Morgan LaFonte and Farmer and my brother.
Oh, wow.
And we go out there. We wake up at sunrise, as we do, get up super early. We hike out there, did the same thing, got driven down the freeway, jumped out of the truck, hiked out there. And we go up there, we session it. Dave does that no grab, just ollie off it.
Yeah.
And now people are doing whatever, back 3, Andreas, freaking whatever.
Yeah.
Rodeo 5. I forget what all the tricks have been. 900's been done off it, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
But
Dave does the first person to ever stick it. Just a big ollie. But it's like a 40-foot, it's a big air.
It's
legit. And he does it. Farmer, I think, might have even tried a backflip off it, or Morgan. It was a crazy session. Farmer maybe does like a method and doesn't stick it, but is in the opening of TB2. So we finish up. It's like 2:00. And what's funny, in the morning, David walked up. He's like, dude, there's footprints up here. There's a boot pack up here. I'm like, a boot pack? Like no one's ever filmed or been back here. And then we session, we're walking out, and up comes right to where I'm shooting. We're actually at the top of it because we're going to the next ridge over. Sione walks up and Graham.
Awesome.
And Sione is like livid.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I can't believe you guys hit that. This is our jump. What, blah, blah, blah. We scoped that out. You didn't see our boot pack. And I go, Dave, dude, we've been looking at this thing for all winter.
Yeah.
We had no idea you were coming here.
Yeah.
At all. And if we did, we wouldn't have poached you. And it's 2:00. You're late, bro. It's in the shade. It's already bomb holed out. We got the shot.
Yeah.
And then he was like so fuming. And that's where the original comes from.
Yeah.
Because Jerry Dugan wrote original. You guys are going out to New Donner, but we had been hiking out there just as long or longer than all those guys.
Right.
And then eventually Sione, a day later, he apologized.
Yeah.
He said, sorry for getting heated.
Well, he was pissed.
I can see it in the moment, but it wasn't like it was like 7:30 in the morning. The sun was just coming up. Graham and Sione came up at 7:45.
Yeah.
It was 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You show up at 2, you're late.
I think I had Sean Johnson talking about, the early days at Brandywine, what you would do if you wanted to call something, before you left, you'd put a shovel on top of it. That was, a shovel meant like, I'm calling this.
Yeah.
And it would be really bad form for someone to just like
Brandywine,
poach the line.
Sean Johnson, Kearns.
You might get beat.
I wouldn't mess with those guys.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, so this is happening mid-90s, or is this happening late 90s?
This was not in mid-90s. This was 93.
Oh, wow.
This is December 93.
So it already started.
Yeah.
And then when does sled access stuff happen? And where do you first go? Like Castle Rock?
Yeah, Castle. And I don't want to say already started. In the early at that time, that was like a one-off.
That was a one-off.
Because it was really only Fall Line Films and Standard and MacDog.
Yeah.
There was which MacDog and I were working together at that point.
Yeah.
So that was just a fluke. We ended up at the same spot.
Right.
So it really didn't start getting crowded till more the mid to later 90s. And the sled access, Castle Peak was some of the first stuff, Blue Lakes. And we only had 500s, mind you.
Yeah.
So we were only really using them to get out to the zone and then hike, shuttling some stuff, some kickers, some easy kickers.
Yeah.
But that was before you're like going up some, billy bobbing up some gnarly ridge.
Right.
And like, that was before the whole like, Canadian double and turn around and jump off on the high side.
Is that called the Canadian double?
That's what we kind of called it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
That's what we call down here. That's what the Cal.
Yeah, where did it start? Who started doing that? Because I remember the first time I went sledding, my expectation was, I was like, you're going to drive, I'm going to hold on to you, and we're going to go. And they were like, nope. You stand on that ski. Yeah. You got the brake. Never touch the brake.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
And I'm goofy, so like that's the wrong side for me.
Yeah.
But so I've always sledded switch because I've never been on the throttle on a double. Yeah. Yeah. That's and that's a game changer. It is a more dignified way to ride. With two people.
The sledding was a game changer. I mean, it's interesting because when we first started sledding, MacDog was very adamant, and this was after we weren't filming. That's when I made TB5, and he, we had split ways at that point. He's like, Mike, don't ever show sleds in the shot.
Oh, interesting.
Don't let people know we're using snowmobiles. I'm
like, okay.
Really? He's like, dude, think about it. Like, no one's using them yet. Like, so he was right. It's like, you don't want to let people know.
Then you're blowing up the spot.
Thinking about that right now in 2022.
Don't
let people know you're using snowmobiles. It's kind of funny because who doesn't have a snowmobile?
It's unreal. Yeah. Brandywine parking lot is 250 cars on the regular.
I remember going up there with Eric Berger, and I think it was like maybe it was when people first started going up there and going through the gauntlet on the one side and going on the other side, and no one and hardly anyone had been to Brandywine. I think it's like 96 maybe.
Yeah.
I think I'm about right. I mean, a few people, but not many.
Right. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Because the sleds too, a 500, where's a 500 going to get you an Indy, like a trail, kind of almost a trail sled?
Yeah. Especially on coastal snow too. Like you get bogged down so fast.
Yeah. But as the sleds got better,
yeah,
the terrain progression and then where you could go and where you could sit up and film. Yeah. Like you could go around as a filmer and I'm going to shoot from here and I'm going to shoot from here and I'm going to shoot from there. You could like check out 10 different angles. And then the riders started getting better. It used to just be kind of like Dave and I shuttling people and dropping off for a kicker. Yeah. And then, Mods got a sled and John Jay got a sled and his brother got a sled and everyone else. And they started getting way better than we were at snowmobiling. Right. So it just started getting, and then Torstein is insane on a snowmobile. So you just get these guys that started getting so good on snowmobiles, and the snowmobiles are so much better. And that just really opened up a lot more filming angles, scoping angles, being able to do so much more in a day off of a snowmobile really opened up the game.
Yeah, I really feel like heli is number one. Yeah. Just because how fast it is. Yeah. You can rip laps and how much time you get on the snow turning. Yeah. Because you're not flying the helicopter. Yeah. But definitely snowmobiles go ahead of catboarding.
Oh, way ahead.
Way ahead.
And around Tahoe, you don't need a helicopter. The trains, you can get anywhere you can land a helicopter. Yeah. In Tahoe, you can drive a snowmobile.
Yeah, that's
so you don't really need it. And I prefer in this kind of terrain, I prefer either to like walk it or you have a snowmobile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you can scope, you can slow down, you can really look at stuff more. And then we have Sonora Pass here south of Tahoe.
Yeah.
And that really became that was like the cheese wedge spot. That's where we basically filmed all.
Because everything's kind of like
rollers.
A big intermediate, like smooth run with rollers.
There's trannies everywhere
Yeah.
in Sonora, and you just build wedges, and
that's really cool.
So that became a really big go-to spot for filming jumps.
So was there ever a time where you were so focused on filmmaking that you didn't take runs for a year, or was you're
No.
Yeah.
No, there was never a time. And that's kind of one of the reasons, honestly, I started losing interest in. That's kind of was on the way out for me when I stopped making snowboard videos.
Yeah.
And besides the business part of it, there was too much time being spent worrying about budgets and shots, and it was not enough time riding POW.
Right.
And there was always the free, and you can ask John Jay, E-Jack, Torstein, Tom Burt. The big part of the whole thing was, you film in the morning till the lights off, which is like between 11 and 1. And then from like noon or 1 till dark or 3:30 till you kind of got to start heading out was free ride time.
Yeah.
That was time for the filmers to ride. And I would take the riders and go, that was always part of it. My hunger for the POW was like, that's why I live in Tahoe. That's why one of the reasons I live in Tahoe is to ride KT22 at Squaw on a powder day. Yeah. And also when I'm filming is to take free ride laps when we're done. And it was funny. Some of the younger guys, as we're bringing them, people would come over from Europe, Yoni Makinen would come over and whoever else would come over to shoot. And then we're like, well, let's go take some POW runs. Like, what do you mean we're done shooting the jump? I go, no, dude, it's like, there's 2 hours of light left. Let's go ride some POW. And at first, some of them would be reluctant. Like, I don't want to know if I want to bother. And then I'd go, trust me, let's just go up and ride this like 1,000-foot perfect untracked powder run in the backcountry. And when we get to the bottom, if you don't want to do it again, you can just sit on your sled. And then they would ride it and go, oh my, I can't believe how fun this is. So that was always a huge motivation behind Standard Films for my brother and I. And just, that was always kind of our motto. Yeah. It's like ride. And we even took that into Alaska. Right. I mean, the early years in Alaska between, if Bert knew, they probably already know, but if they knew between 1995 and 2000, those 5 years, how much, and you look at the movies, a third of the movies are Alaska. Yeah. And we rode 30 to 40% of the time was straight up free runs. Oh, man. On everyone's budget. My budget, Burton budget, Oakley budget, Sims budget, whoever. Like, cause you get plenty of footage. When it's good up there, you don't have to panic. Right. So you have plenty of footage or segments in the can. And the more you ride POW, you want to ride, you got to keep it real. You want to ride POW. Yeah. And you've already got plenty of footage and you've got it in the budget. The heli's there. Why not just ride? And the more you scope, the more you ride and scope around, the better results you get because you scope out rad stuff to film. Yeah. And the more loose you get riding up there. Yeah. And that's, again, back to what I just said a minute ago about the winters started getting not as good in Alaska, let's say. Okay. I'd say significantly. Maybe it's a weather pattern thing. I think it's probably global warming. Yeah. But the winters are not as good up there now. We get these huge dumps up there and a wind event afterwards, or warm temperatures and weird layering and more abbey conditions. I remember this stretch between 95 and 2000 where it was just almost always stable and almost always blower powder. Like you could go up in April in Alaska, you're guaranteed pretty much more than half the time it's going to be darn good. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So you just get to this point where you've got plenty of footage and you just want to free ride. And then as the years went on, budgets got tighter. Yeah. And that almost made the riders more uptight because they had to deliver. They had to do contests too. Right. Well, I've got to make every run count. I can't just go free ride. Right. Like I've got to if we're in the heli, this is like, I've only got a $4,000 heli budget. And I'm like, $4,000 heli budget? Try $20,000 budget. Yeah. And then we'll talk. Literally you need at least $10,000 right to go heli in Alaska.
To shoot a part.
You need more like 20.
Wow, man.
To really get a part. Yeah. You go up there on $4,000, you're like scratching the surface.
Yeah. See, that's blowing my mind. Like for me, I can't even imagine budgets like that because they're coming out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe with the show, I can get it,
Well,
right?
you can go more.
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
came
yeah.
out of the standard budget too. Like I spent some of my profit
Of course you did.
riding Alaska.
Yeah, you reinvested in your thing because
Yeah.
that's the way to do it, obviously. Yeah, I mean, that was the answer I was hoping for. I kind of knew. I mean, from watching you ride today, riding with your brother, like, you guys were always all about it.
All about it.
Speaking about that with Dave, I never really thought about it at the time. Afterwards, when we became more kind of cynical skateboard, like critiques of movies and stuff, you having your brother in your movie and him being involved with the movie, like, did you ever take any flack for that? How long was he like a star in the movie?
No, I never really got flack. There was definitely people that were he was the star of the movie till TB4. So Totally Bored. And then he was in a couple Mac Dog movies, prior to Totally Bored.
Yeah.
And a couple follow-on movies. Then he had TB2, TB3, TB4.
Yeah.
And then he broke his femur in TB4 up at Donner.
Is that under that rock?
He hit a tree doing a follow cam with Tom Bird. He hit an icy patch down this narrow chute.
I looked at the tree today.
Yeah.
Corey showed me.
He broke his femur there.
That half tree that
and then Dave,
right there.
Dave never really recovered from that. And I never really caught flack for filming Dave. I don't think.
I mean, he's fucking amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good rider, but it wasn't, he's a great big mountain rider.
Yeah.
But it was more what we would catch flack for, I think, is the powder.
Yeah.
Like you'd have these like gnarly freestyle guys, and you look at Mac Dog's movies, and they're dope.
Yeah.
I mean, the level of riding in his movies at one point, from like the mid like '97 on. If you look at a standard flick and some of the things, and you look at some of the stuff in a Mac Dog movie, it's like clearly some of the crap those guys are doing on the rails, the urban stuff, and some of the cheese wedges was gnarlier than what we were putting in the standard movies.
I see.
With the exception of Alaska, I would say, or some of the Johan stuff.
Yeah.
There's moments of Rippy and whoever, but and maybe I wouldn't personally, no one would say it to my face, but I kind of caught the vibe. And even dealing with sponsors and stuff.
Yeah.
No, and that became a thing too. Like, oh, we want to shoot, can you guys shoot, we want more freestyle. I'm like, that's great. Freestyle is a part of snowboarding. It's one of the main parts of it. But what about Alaska?
Right.
And I think the thing is too, is like, doesn't translate on film as well.
It really doesn't.
Yeah, like if you look at like a gnarly line in Alaska, it looks almost easy.
Yeah.
But if you go stand up and clip in to something that Johan or Tom Bird or Rippy or Downing or any one of those people or Slasnik, and you look down that, until you've clipped in and looked down and ridden it for yourself, you really have no idea how gnarly it is. It's just a different kind of gnarly. But I mean, going down a back lip on a kinked rail with cement to butt check. I mean, it's it's all dangerous.
It's a different danger.
It's a different danger. But I have a ton of respect for the Mac Dog movies and that whole. It's just a different thing.
Yeah, he was pushed by progression.
Yeah.
I think the foundation. This is a guess, but I feel the foundation of the TV series was breathtaking. Like it was like. These are beautiful shots of people doing beautiful stuff. Whereas he was really focusing on like never been done tricks with perfect style.
Yes.
Shot perfectly.
Yeah.
Like he wanted the progression.
Yeah.
Whereas, you would have got a little bit of a fire lit under your ass if the guys you were with for the freestyle weren't progressive enough.
Yes.
Whereas in the backcountry, you can't progress more than you were the tip of the spear of progression of backcountry riding, freestyle riding, ride riding. I mean,
and that was one of my main, as far as progression is concerned. And we shot big cheese wedges, not as big as the Mac Dog ones for the most part.
Yeah.
And we had some rad freestyle moves in our videos, rad tricks,
absolutely,
but not a whole lot of urban footage. But the progression for me was the stuff that a lot of stuff you see like Travis Rice doing now.
Yes.
And those guys. Ben Ferguson, you see in like Natural Selection. I almost feel like that, like the Natural Selection was like an early, like the early TB movies was like, I would like, Johan, like, dude, can you like, it's a 10 foot to a 20 foot rock. Can you like cab off that one rock and then maybe do a back three off the second one?
Yeah.
Or do whatever, like off this and do like a front side 180 off the bottom, or do 3 turns down that spine and do a back 5 off that spine and just land at FT, land at fresh track.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, that was my obsession with progression.
Yeah.
Was working with like Johan and Selaznik.
Well, TB5 Johan part is just like, it was a mind melter.
That was a mind, and the conditions were amazing. And he was doing that. And that for me, that was my progression. That I was obsessed with freestyle in the big mountains.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually, and then TB2, when Terrier does that, there's one, I think he does like maybe a switchback 1 to a back 7 or a front 7 off this little wind lip.
Yeah.
And I was arguing with him at the top of the run. He's like, Hatchett, that's so small. That's dumb. I'm like, dude, it's fresh. He's just like, dude, just ride switch and I don't know, do a front 180, do whatever, I forget what trick it was. Like do a cab to a back 7. And he did it. But he was literally yelling at me because he thought it was dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude, it doesn't have to be huge.
And it's a clip.
It's a clip, and it's like fresh. And then you look at like Nicholas Mueller and the stuff he did.
Totally.
It's like it's Giggy Ruff and the Absence movies. It's fresh.
Yeah.
And back to natural selection. It's all just kind of like it's freestyle in the big mountains. And that, for me, that was what I was really obsessed with filming.
Well, if you look at the natural selection stuff, it's impossible for them to make it look good. Well, they've just stacked the odds against them getting like epic footage. It's a live shot of it. I guess it's edited after, like obviously they have to, but like they shoot it in a live style setting. And what you would imagine from a creative point of view is here's this wide open setting.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a resort. It's going to get tracked kind of fairly evenly all the way across. But you can't discount the advantage of knowing how big a thing is and how fast to go at it.
Yeah.
So then they end up kind of doing this. They kind of build a hit run.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I would rather watch that. I think it's totally awesome. I love watching that.
I love watching it too. Yeah.
And I think it's cool, like compared to like hitting a straight wedge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all cool. I mean, it's all rad.
Yeah.
I mean, you build a gigantic Heine highway up to some gigantic jump and do some insane trick off it that it took you 10 times to stick it. Right. That's rad.
Right.
A handrails. I love it all.
Yeah. It's kind of like in music, right? It's like a session song that's like a lot of producing versus, somebody that can play a song live that just like brings you to tears. It's exactly like that. And both things are epic, right?
Yeah.
Like the produced video parts are incredible. And then the live, jazz of Travis's line in Alaska last year was a video game.
Yeah, it was. And I like watching the live stuff, but like you said, the video part, nothing is more legit in snowboarding than a banger video part. Right. If you have a 3-minute part or whatever, 2.5 to 4 minute part, it's all just you.
Yeah.
What do you got? Let's see it.
Yeah.
Let's see what tricks you got. Let's see how good of a free rider you are. Let's see how maybe it's urban riding mixed in. How good of a song did you pick? I mean, it's just like, to me, that's the ultimate. You got guys like Torstein Horgemo, who can just throw down the most hammer part. And you're like, dude, that guy is legit. And that, like John Jackson, Gigi Ruff, Nicholas Mueller, I mean, the list goes on. Travis Rice, dude, it's just like there's like, now maybe how many guys are there that are like 25 dudes and a handful of women that you can like look at and go, they can throw down a hammer part. Yeah. It's rad to win a contest. I have respect for it and all that and what's going on even in the half pipe today. It's crazy. It's nuts. Yeah. But nothing to me. And I'm obviously biased because I'm a filmmaker, but that is the ultimate expression, and you're legit when you can throw down a video part in like JP Walker in a Mac Dog movie. That's legit. Yeah. And whatever your style is, whatever your flavor is.
Yeah. And the video part bought them, like, look at as early as Damien, right?
Yeah.
You get 2 years because you're paid to film a part.
Yeah.
Then the part comes out.
Yeah.
Now you could be sitting on the couch injured or hanging out or whatever for that whole year, and you're still selling product. You still did your job because that video part is carrying you.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's almost like everything's so instant. Like we're seeing stuff that happened today.
Yeah.
And it stays in the news cycle of your feed for a week. You might see it from a couple of different places, and then you go like, oh, that is really good. You might watch it over and over again on one, and then you see it again. You're like, you like that? Like it's a completely different animal, right? The incentives were get good enough to be in one of the premier movies.
Yeah.
Also, and I want to ask you about this. When did the pay to play come into effect? Like what, because a lot of guests will talk about like, and then my sponsor threw down for me to crew up with, you know,
Yeah.
they paid the 10 grand or they paid the 30 grand or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, to a purist, you kind of go, oh shit, you had to start filming with the people who, you know what I mean? Like, oh, the Sims team, because Sims is trying another kick at the can.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
As far as like, you mean like the people getting paid to be in our movies, or like,
Like, it's kind of like the lobbying of, it's like,
yeah,
if Sims gives you 30 grand, let's just say 10, because everybody always says, oh yeah, it's 10 grand. Then you got to pick a couple of their riders to be in the movie. Like, it's just
the formula kind of came in, like, I'd say 95 started becoming more of a formula.
Yeah.
Where Burton would call us up and go, hey, I want you to work with Downing and Terrier and Rippey for the season.
right.
Here's 50 grand.
Right.
But I knew all the three of those guys are going to deliver a part.
Yeah, of course.
So sometimes I would on the flip side, I would find a rider I want to work with.
Yeah.
And I would call the sponsor and say, hey, we want to work with your rider.
Right.
Will you want to sponsor the video? And they'd say
Will
yes.
you support the film?
Yeah,
right,
we support
right,
them.
right.
They usually would say yes. Or a sponsor would call me up and say, hey, I got this rider. You know, Renee Hansen, you know, would say, I got Freddie Kalmerbottom. That was straight up Renee, like at Burton, going, hey, I got this guy that totally rips. I'd never even heard of him. And I'd call a couple of the riders on Burton, like Downing or whoever. I'm always calling Downing because he usually knows.
Yeah.
And he'd back him up, and then we'd be like, this game on.
Was there ever a guy that was just, he didn't have a sponsor, or his sponsor was, he was riding for some small company that couldn't afford the thing that you were just like, you know what, you can hang. It's fun to ride with you. Just be in the movie.
There's a few clips. I mean, here and there. I'm trying to remember who it is. There's moments.
Yeah.
Mostly it was people that were, that were suggested by people.
Yeah.
And then it was weird too. Like, some people were really good riders that I don't think got the recognition they deserved.
Sure.
Like anything. And some people got more recognition than they deserved.
Right.
Like to me, it's hard to drop names or whatever. John Evan Moore.
Okay.
There's a guy, in my opinion, who is one of the best big mountain riders ever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Super underrated.
Yeah.
And just didn't quite, for whatever reasons. You know, he was in movies. He was a pro snowboarder. He was super cool dude.
He's gnarly.
He's gnarly. One of the gnarliest.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, can't put my finger on it.
Well, was his sponsor?
Burton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe he's just on too big of a team.
I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Put him on the right projects or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Just one of those guys where it was like, dude, how come that guy is not as big as Jeremy Jones?
Right.
Like,
right.
I still scratch my head.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah.
But there's some guys too that were like, maybe were blown up more than their ability.
That's a hard one to say.
Yeah,
right?
I don't want to say
you don't want to hurt
names,
somebody's feelings.
You know,
right,
but it works kind of both ways. I mean, and there wasn't a ton like that. And then there was guys too that maybe, guys that got suggested for us to shoot that rode for a company, and we gave them a shot, and they either got hurt or only got a few shots and wondered why they didn't make the movie.
You know what's funny is that I think I might be one of those guys. You know why? Because I rode for Ice Age, and they brought us down to Mount Hood or somewhere, and we were filming with a filmer from Standard. I don't even know who it was, but they paid for the movie, right? Like, so there's Jimmy Scott shots in that.
Yeah.
Then there's Tom Burt shots in that. But we were told to go out with this filmer. It was like, we were dumb. You know what I mean? Like, we were just down there, rubbernecking. Like, look at this. Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't realize it until way later. Because I think in the intro, I'm sure in the intro to TB4, TB5, Morgan LaFont does her backflip in the bra. We were at that session. Whoever filmed that, we filmed with that filmer. So I think we were just like, Ice Age was like hoping that we would get clips in the movie. Yeah. But we're just two Canadian yahoos down there going, I'll do a front three. We were definitely below the progression of what was going on at that time.
And I think that's what happened with some of the people. Yeah, people were slightly below, and maybe there should have been another movie they should have been in.
Oh, that would have been cool to have like a feeder movie where you just throw like tons of footage.
Just maybe the people that aren't Terry Hawkinson and aren't Jim Rippey. I mean, not everyone can be. So maybe they're. That's what's kind of cool about today. You can get out there with the way that media say you can get yourself on film. Where back then, and also too, like from a filmmaking standpoint, at the end of the year, you end up with so much footage and you have to edit it down. And we got to this point where these people with like 20 seconds of footage just doesn't, how many like friend seggies can we throw in there, you know, where I was just like to the point where like, I just want to put in Johan and Rippy and Terrier. And I just want to put in like the Gnar because it's only so much time we have.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's just, that part was, and it was always, you know, it's never fun to cut people.
Right. But if you kowtow to the sponsors and put in something that's not supposed to be there, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah. You're going to hear about if there's bad footage in there. And, yeah. I mean, and then, you know, we would get, it was always tricky.
It sounds like it was see right?
It's a balance. Yeah. It was a balance.
And so you've got team managers speaking off at you going like, hey, why didn't you put more in? And then you can shoot back like, well, talk to your guy.
Yeah.
And then they're talking to their guy going, you know, what's your footage? Yeah, I've heard a lot of people who are great like excellent snowboarders that just had an off year or whatever that were filming for your project that their footage didn't pan out. It's not going to be in the movie. Then they have that horrible night, horrible week. Then they realize, okay, well, maybe I can get that footage from you and we'll put it in some other movie. And so that would have happened quite frequently, right? Where you would sell your footage or, you know.
Sell or give.
Or give, depending on if it's already been paid for, whatever, to another project. And then they would just.
Yeah.
So, that happened. You didn't have to make another movie. You could just give it to another crew.
Yeah, right? We always did that. We supplied the footage.
You're not going to throw the footage in the garbage or whatever, right?
No.
Yeah. But you would have had to have some hard heart-to-hearts, I imagine.
It was a tough dynamic, and I mean, I know snowboarding it's a brutal sport. I mean, it's so physical, and it's very easy to get injured.
It's dangerous.
It's very dangerous, and I mean, it's hard to get a video part. I mean, you got to land, you got to go big, you got to grab, you got to hold your grab, you got to stomp, you got to have good style.
Talk about Noah and how where did he figure out how to ride for the camera? Because like TB2, his footage is like wild. It's like a wild man riding down the mountain, but he somehow always managed to ride the right direction, slough management, all that stuff. Did someone teach him that, or did he just pull it out of the air?
Noah was just a magician. He was just an amazingly talented snowboarder. And we worked good together, Noah and I, and Mac Dog and Noah worked good together. Tom Day and Noah worked. He knew how to work with cameramen, but he also was just a ripping rider. And he was very good at communicating. I'm going to go up and do that. Like he would stand at the bottom of stuff with me and go, what if I rip down that and do that? I'm like, that's insane. Yeah, let's shoot that. And then he was very, but he wasn't, you know, overly focused on the cameraman or how to do it. He's just so skilled. All you gotta do is point a camera at him and you're gonna get a shot. He's like Johan.
Yeah.
It's like a joke. It's like Johan's like a wild animal. You just like point the camera at him and stuff happens.
Yeah.
Noah was like that. He's just so good. He could do anything with any little, big or small. He could make something kind of out of nothing. And Noah was so good at that.
Yeah.
So good at that.
Yeah. I think if you've ever been at the bottom of something, you look up at it and you think, okay, I could do that. I'll go here to here to here. And then you get to the top of it and you go, what the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah.
Where are my landmarks?
Yeah.
But he seemed to have it where he could hold it together. I've heard from a few people that Noah just gave them that little bit of a hey, listen, when you're on camera, none of that fishtailing. You're gonna want to make everything smooth. You don't want to break it up into sections. So think of the mountain in a way that you can flow from one feature to the other, and that's exactly what he did.
Oh yeah, that sounds like Noah. I mean, he's just so gifted and just such a flow, and he had that skate style too. Again, that back to when I was talking about Terry and I kind of arguing in Alaska.
Yeah,
about that. It was that skate style in the mountains, and that's what I was so obsessed with filming. And Noah just had that on lock.
Yeah,
he could just literally skate down the hill, but he also had the big mountain. You're saying he knew where he was on his spine. He knew how to outrun a slough in Alaska. He knew how to ride over a blind rollover. Right. He knew how to sit at the bottom and look at something. New Donner, I say New Donner because it's where the I-80 drop is. It's super steep there because there's Donner Summit and New Donner. Yeah. Noah has a bunch of rad clips from New Donner, but it's super steep. It's all blind rollovers.
It's incredibly steep.
But he would look at the bottom and go, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then he would just go down and just like Jeremy Jones would not get lost.
Wow.
But then he'd be like, he's on a skateboard. He's like skating down
Yeah.
an Alaskan spine with like the skill of Jeremy Jones and like full skate style.
That's so rad.
That's what makes Noah made him such an incredible rider, is because he had like both skill sets.
Yeah,
so
Rankwit
unlocked.
talked about how gripping it was to be in Alaska. That pressure of like, you got to do the best run of your life on film.
Yeah.
We were getting paid to do this. It's costing a lot of money every time they roll film. Like, you're wasting film if you don't do something amazing. He said he just couldn't sleep up there.
Oh, Noah?
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry. Rankwit.
Oh,
said
Rankwit.
that.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I
Yeah.
was like, oh, yeah, I guess. Because as a consumer of these things, seeing the
Yeah.
videos, you're like, man, if I went to Alaska, I bet I'd be doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But really,
Yeah.
that is the thought pattern of somebody that's not going to go there.
Yeah. And in Rankwit too, like he shot with us a little bit in TB2.
Yeah.
Had Rankwit spent more time with me and Noah together,
Yeah.
and been like on kind of our team more, and been around Tom Burt more and learned a little bit more with those guys.
Yeah.
Because Ranky's got the ability.
Oh, big time.
I think he could have done and he's already done incredible stuff on a snowboard,
Yeah.
but he could have done even more in Alaska had he got to spend time, I think, with me and Noah, and
Yeah.
kind of just be around us more. Like
Yeah.
we didn't get to spend that much time with Rankwit there.
I see.
And I think a lot of it was like Noah got to learn from like Tom Burt.
Right.
And like Tom would tell him, like, dude, this is how you outrun your slough. This is how you look up at something. You're going to go rider's right of that little mini tree.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go up the spine. Your slough's going to go down that gully. And then when it starts going down, you're going to hop over on the other spine and outrun it. And so Noah he just clicked right into that mode of like route finding on big mountain riding. And he got to learn. He was around Tom Burt. He was around Goodwill. He was around Tex. He was around all these gnarly guys that were just charging.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Was there a point where Noah's sponsors become a category where he's not able to go to Alaska anymore?
No, that never happened.
That just never happened. What happened in the end? Because there was MLY. He was with the Molly guys.
Yeah.
And then I don't know where he went from
Yeah,
there.
he did his TP7 part, went to Alaska.
Yeah.
And maybe it was a sponsor thing he didn't tell me about, but at that point he was getting kind of burnt, I think, on filming parts and
Yeah.
needed a break.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I mean, and then, yeah, I don't know exactly. All I know is the Noah because my brother took care of Noah right before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent quite a bit of time with him in his last literally weeks.
Yeah.
And the Noah I knew when we shot TB5 and all that stuff, and the Noah sorry, I'm getting kind of emotional thinking about it, but the Noah right before he passed away, he was a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never noticed anything early on with Noah. Yeah, we were ripping bong hits and drinking a couple beers.
Right.
He was just a bro. Like he was like
Yeah.
a bro. He was
Yeah.
like, when I first met him, he like literally lived under our freaking pool table at the TB2 house. Like literally crashed underneath. He lived under the pool table. We'd
Rad.
go ride squaw.
Rad.
And then he ended up getting his own place, and just it was always pow
Yeah.
and spines. And where's your next bunny? Where's your next front 180
Yeah.
going to be? Where's
Yeah.
your next front 3 off the rock, dude? It was like it was just straight up like filming.
Yeah.
What rat trick you going to do and where am I going to shoot it from? And then on the other days it was, let's go ride squaw
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
day. Let's ride POW all day. But he had cancer
Oh,
and it
wow,
wasn't
man.
treated. And I took him to the hospital and his organs were shutting down. His legs were all swollen up and his organs, his body was shutting down.
Yeah.
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 And it just was, there was a moment though when we reminisced and when Dave rented him the house and
Yeah.
we went through old photos and
Oh,
then we went through the
rad.
Super Spines Polaroid and
Rad.
we went through the ads and we talked and he was so pumped and he was like genuinely stoked and remembering it,
Good. Man,
stuff.
oh, man.
Yeah.
That's I mean, the biggest tragedy in snowboarding.
I would say.
It's harder than an avalanche, because an avalanche is somebody, passing away doing something that they're passionate about, that they're loving, and it's fast.
Yeah.
This is years. Was it years of it?
Years of it. Yes.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
It was
That's
heavy.
So how frequently do you go out nowadays? Like today was a pretty early. Yeah. Like we're only the first week of December.
Yeah.
Right now.
So as the season gets into full swing here, I'll be out as much as I can.
Yeah.
I work now in a full-time job, but luckily my job that I'm working now, I basically from December until March is our slow season.
Perfect.
So for snowboarding, it's great. I only have to work maybe part-time at the most.
Yeah.
So I go out 3-4 days a week when I can.
That's great.
Weekends, I take my daughter out snowboarding.
Fun.
The weekends and any POW day at Squaw, I'm there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I go out as much as I can.
No more early ups, though.
No more early ups. I don't need them. I can go split boarding or snowmobiling.
Yeah. There's a lot of terrain there, and you guys know the mountain like crazy.
Yeah,
right?
we know the mountain good, and yeah, I don't know more. I don't really rarely do early ups.
Yeah.
I mean, I do some filming here and there still, so I do occasionally go early ups.
Do you have a day rate? Maybe I have to come up with some sort of plan and hire you for some retro filming thing.
We'll figure it out.
We should make a trailer that is as badass as the TB2 trailer. Do you still have a tape of the TB2 trailer?
I might be down in a box somewhere. I mean, we got some old VHSs.
That's something we're talking about. So the digitization of this old film stuff.
Yeah.
I spoke with Mouse about it, and he was like, we need to archive all this stuff that's on film that's going to like melt away. Like film has a half-life. It needs to be kept somewhere that is cool and dry. And like have you, so MacDog's wife told me they scrubbed the internet of all bootleg MacDog stuff because they wanted to do MacDog.com and start uploading stuff.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? Is that a project that you would be for yourself? Would you archive the stuff, or have you already done it?
I haven't archived. I have all the movies archived. I have them all digitized.
Yeah.
And but all the raw footage is not digitized.
Yeah.
I have all the original films stored.
Yeah.
Off site, and then I have another spot where all the hard drives are. Those are in 2 spots. So I have it basically in 3 spots.
Oh, that's cool.
But I've never digitized all the Mouse has talked to me about digitizing the stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that yet. And to do some kind of .com thing could be rad, but it's just time consuming.
It's very
I got to pay the
time-consuming.
bills. I can't, I'd love to just do it, but I
Who
can't.
digitized the TB series? That was you?
Oh, Teton Gravity Research did it for me. I just sent.
That's really nice.
Yeah, TGI. I paid them per movie. They did all the movies, and I capture all those. And I have some of the raw footage. Terrier's raw.
Oh, wow.
I got like Tom Burt's raw.
Oh, wow.
I got Johann's.
Wow.
I have a handful of the raw footage.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, it's cool to think back, but I mean, I definitely would like to I mean, the film it does have a shelf life, and I feel like the early TB movies, especially the early 90s, like the 91 to 98 or even 2000, and the same goes for MacDog. I feel like those 10 years is a very valuable part in snowboarding for the history of the sport, or the progression. It doesn't go all the way back to a lot of the stuff you see, but as far as like Terrier and Jamie Lynn and all those guys, them and Johann and all those, I feel like that's a pretty special time period.
I agree.
Yeah, and I'd like to digitize the library at one point, or even put re-edit. I mean, there's so much raw footage that didn't make the movies.
Of
and
course.
Stuff. Yeah.
And of course.
And it was cool to think like back, like we used to shoot on film, for 2 or 3 weeks, and then get it all developed, and then get it sent back up on a VHS tape, and then we'd watch all the VHS, like sit down on your couch and log it all clip by clip, rewind whatever, and log the clips, and then at the end of the year take the beta SP masters, which the film was transferred to, and load that all on the computer, and then edit the movie. Yeah. And now you can just grab a Red camera or a GoPro or a drone or whatever, and you shoot. You can watch your clip right then. Yeah. But that wasn't
do it again.
Yeah, obviously wasn't the case back then.
No, obviously, right. Yeah, that's nuts. So when we're watching the TB series movies online, are you getting some form of kickback for that?
A small amount. If you're watching it on Echo Boom Sports, that's the player you want to watch it on. Yeah. Echo Boom Sports. They have a player online. Yeah. It's a very small menial. It's like in the $50 to $100 a month realm. But it's like a sushi night out. Yeah. It's not much, but
that's dope.
Yeah. So we're getting a kick, and we did the same thing. We tried to grab all the stuff off that was poached.
Yes, good.
And get it through a distributor, so we get some royalties off of it.
Yeah, man.
Because people were uploading. And they were.
It was a free for all.
It was a free for all.
It was a free for all.
And that's even kind of helped lead to one of the reasons that I stopped doing videos, because the business model stopped working. Right. We would sell VHS. At first it was VHSs, and then it was DVDs. And then people started taking the DVDs and then uploading them onto YouTube or these BitTorrent sites. Right. So you release a movie, and then 2 weeks later it's already up on this BitTorrent site. Yeah. So someone can watch it for free. So you watch your video sales go down, 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 down. And that was a big part of our, the sponsorship paid for half of the movie.
Right.
And then we had to go out of pocket, and then to actually put food on the table and make a living, you were kind of dependent on those video sales.
Yeah.
And as those got basically next to zero,
Right.
or 5,000 copies, which is not.
I mean,
pay
that's
the
still
bills.
a lot for most people. The same thing that happened to Jerry and Artie is now happening to you, because you've got robot film, robot food, and like these new quirky kind of movies that are really kind of,
Yeah.
or even because were you still going when Art of Flight comes out? Like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, are you competing directly against Art of Flight with its crazy budget and
Yeah.
Morgan's like eye for these shots and all
We
this?
were.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I'm not, no offense, because I don't know what your movies were at that time,
Yeah.
but like if this new kind of 2-year project,
Mm-hmm.
helicopters filming helicopters, dramatic slow-mo is coming out.
Yeah.
And you're and the whole place, the video sales are falling off the friggin'
Yeah.
off a cliff. It's like overwhelming, right? Like
It was overwhelming. Yeah. And then Art of Flight. Yeah. And those guys too, I don't know exactly how their business model worked, but I think, Red Bull paid for pretty much most of it.
So they've got this unlimited budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were making, the filmmakers were making their money up front. They're
Yeah,
making
up
the
front.
money
Right,
like from
exactly.
Red Bull. Like, hey,
Right.
you're going to pay us to make
It's a
this
different
movie.
business model. That's
Yeah,
exactly
like,
it.
Great.
Right.
If you want to give me, whatever X amount of dollars to shoot a snowboard video, I'm down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I don't know how much money they even made off that movie. It was more of an ad for Red Bull, I think. I don't know if they ever recouped any money off DVD
knows?
sales, or I don't know. But but that was part of that Red Bull.
They keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like the Ben Ferguson
Yeah.
movie, I went and saw it. It's great. It's amazing. But it's all those guys flying around for premieres.
Yeah.
It's a Red Bull ad, right?
It's a Red Bull ad, and
Right.
Red Bull's paying for it.
That's it.
And
That's
that
it.
was different than, back when we were doing it, Burton would fly someone down to our premiere, and Oakley might fly someone down, or
Right.
Volcom, or whoever, North Face. It was like kind of onesie, it was smaller, where we didn't have like we didn't have a drink company.
Right.
We did have Monster for a few years, but yeah, it changed. And the internet changed everything.
Yeah.
Vimeo and YouTube, GoPros.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Eventually phones. Right.
everything
right.
changed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the instant uploading,
Mm-hmm.
because when we made, think of 1994, you film all year,
Yeah.
and you can't see that footage until you go watch it at a premiere, or you buy the VHS or DVDs eventually when they
Yes.
came out. And then we used to make copies of our teasers, our trailers, and FedEx them, whatever, overnight them to all the shops.
Yeah,
Snowboard
yeah.
Connection, all of our favorite shops.
I remember we'd get them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you'd send 2 copies to our favorite shops, that they would play the trailer in the
Yeah.
shops.
Yes, exactly.
And the
VMAX
kids-
would send them to us.
Yeah, and the kids would froth and watch them, and then they would
Totally.
buy the VHS. So now it was just you had to wait. There was
Yeah.
no. I mean, we made TB2. There was no cell phones.
None.
There was.
Yeah.
You had to fax people. You had to literally fax
Yeah.
people. You couldn't text.
Right.
There wasn't cell phones.
On technology, did you guys have like those walkie-talkies? Like, were you?
Yeah.
So like that was, how early on was that?
That was right off TB2. That was one thing that we always used radios. And when it came to the big mountain riding too, we were always it was a very professional, I don't want to say regimented, but we were very serious about
Eyes on, like, okay, to
We
the
were-
left of the tree, to the left of the tree.
We were
Right.
very
Yeah.
serious about
Yeah.
scoping lines,
Mm-hmm.
snow safety.
Yes.
Like, was it avalanche conditions? Everyone had a beacon, shovel probe? Was there a person on top? Because we didn't have guides with us, so we were self-guided. But we
Oh,
were
wow.
always very, very professional about not getting lost on lines, where people were riding, not, one person at a time.
Yeah,
Where's
no
the can-
loosey-goosey.
There was no loose
yeah,
cannon going
yeah,
down.
yeah,
It wasn't ever happening. Even in Alaska, we were unguided, but we were trying to be smart about it.
Right.
It was definitely Wild West, and there was no guides, but we were attempting to go one at a time and have have someone on top that could dig. We were attempting to be smart, and radios always played a very big part of our communication.
Yeah.
And in scoping, like in Tahoe, like really and even back to Noah,
Yeah.
like you stand and look at something and analyze it with the rider and let them say something first. And then I go, but how about, and they would say something. I go, well, dude, look at that like really lit line over there. They'd be like, I didn't even see that. I'm like, what about 3 turns off that and then into that pocket and then off that? And we'd collaborate that way. So radios and communication have always been part of our
Ammo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like even getting into talking about how digital kind of killed film or
Yeah.
whatever, film kind of killed photography, because there was a whole era of Bud Fawcett's, John Foster's,
Yeah.
like where if you knew Rob Gracie and you shredded in his vicinity and he took photos of you, you're going to be in the magazines, and now you could be sponsored. And it
Yeah.
didn't even matter if you could land, because it's just get in the air. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And then the filmers pushed those guys to the long lens, right? Like, they get out of the shot, Gracie. Like,
Totally.
Yeah, yeah.
We would work with, exactly, you nailed it. We would work with the photographers, but basically, yeah, it was like, get out of our shot.
Yeah,
Get a 70, get a 70 to 200, get a telephoto, and get out of our shot. And they couldn't get as many good shots.
Right.
But they still, I mean, Jeff Curtis,
Yep.
Eric Berger,
Yeah.
I mean, Surface,
Yeah.
the list goes on and on.
Dano,
Dano,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Dano from the early
Catella.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
those guys made livings out of it, and Transworld published a ton of photos, and they worked around it.
Yes.
But
yeah,
but you're better off with a photographer. You're better off working one-on-one.
It's a business model, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Gracie and Jimmy Scott. I saw that in probably, 94, 93. It was like, oh, it's a partnership. Because Gracie makes some money off the photos.
Yeah,
Jimmy makes some money off the photos.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a great way to do it.
yeah. And I mean, it's hard for a photographer. I kind of felt sorry for him at one
Yeah,
point, like
yeah.
on the standard shoots, because we always had a photographer,
Yeah.
and they had to work around us.
Yeah,
and there was
yeah,
no
yeah.
ands, ifs, or buts.
Yeah.
It was like, you're not in my shot.
Right. So those guys are better off being younger, like the next generation that didn't know those gravy days
Yeah.
of, like, making money hand over fist as a photographer.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's the same sort of thing for the digital but the thing is that nobody's making money off snowboard stuff anymore. All the movies are ads. It's the
Yeah,
Burt
the only
movie.
way. Yeah,
There was like an over 1 hour Sims movie. I'm like, what?
yeah.
What the hell is that?
It's the only way to make money these days as a filmmaker in snowboarding is to get paid to do it by a company. Like,
Yeah.
have a company pay you to make a movie.
Yeah.
Which is great if you can be in that position, but it's not as many as there used to be in it. Back in
Right.
the day, there was more, and then you got into the 2000s where there was like 10 movies out,
Yeah.
and everyone was making money. Yeah, now it's just a few different guys.
I wonder if someone could come back into it and just be like, all right, across genres, across sponsors, make the movie again where it's just hammers and these parts are no leaking, no nothing.
Yeah.
We're doing the premiere and you got to pay to see this movie. I think
You could do it.
I
I
th-
mean, it's the pirate guys. Those guys have made some good,
Oh,
really
yeah.
good movies.
Oh, yeah.
They're dope,
Yeah.
and other people are too. I mean, that's the even the Red Bull stuff is coming out. It's all dope. It's just not when you have.
but you have to give it away for free. That's the thing. Nobody's paying to.
It is.
Oh wait, that's not true. We did pay. It was $15 to go to the premiere. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
It
Yeah.
gets when you get sponsors involved now, though, it's like one main sponsor.
Yeah.
And then it's all their back to their riders. It's,
Yeah.
Back in the day, we did have it was sponsors, but we were grabbing 20 grand from this person and 10 grand from this person. So you had like literally 12 sponsors or
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
which is still happening today to some extent. But you had everyone pitching in, so you really had you had all these different diverse riders and diverse input.
You know what I
had-
just thought of? No offense to anybody that is in the backcountry right now, but the progression's not there. It's not happening now. The incentives aren't enough. You're not getting paid enough
Yeah.
to go and do something bigger than UC Oxenden. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like nobody's going bigger than that era.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And if you look back at like True Life, let's say,
Yeah.
which in my opinion, for what it's worth, is probably one of the best snowboard videos ever made.
Shout out to Sean Kearns,
Yeah.
perfectionist.
Yeah.
And just,
I mean,
yeah.
Mac Dog. I mean, that
Mac
video
Dog,
is
yeah.
dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't see a whole lot of that going down. You see dope stuff in natural selection. You see like Travis Rice and those guys doing some pretty rad, especially when it comes to Alaska. You see some pretty dope stuff.
But it's dope in context,
In
right? It's
context
not-
of a
it's-
context, yeah. You
of
don't
a
see,
yeah.
and it's back to, and then you see a half pipe where people are going nuts.
That's true.
That is
absolutely
like death
true.
defying.
Yes.
Literally death defying.
Yeah.
And
The
crazy.
progression
Yeah.
in that is
Yeah.
insane.
I mean, as long as they keep the style points into it. I always loved how Danny Davis, kept the style real
Yeah.
in half pipe riding.
Yeah, I was trying to get him on the show. He just had a kid last week.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's doing great. He bought that house on that Donner Pass Road. From what I hear,
He lives out.
He lonely house.
He lives. Maybe he did, but he lives out by Prosser though. He bought a house in Prosser.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's this again. Like I said earlier, the true test of a rider is a dope video part.
Absolutely.
I haven't been watching enough snowboard videos lately to really comment and be totally know what I'm saying.
Me neither, dude. And I love them.
Yeah, it's almost like your attention span, and some of it's sensory overload, and people's attention spans have dropped. It's.
I remember in the beginning looking at the early, let's say Totally Bored 2, right? Like TB2, looking at that and going, okay, it's not so far off where I am.
Yeah.
Like it's almost attainable. Like I could try those tricks.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing. Like I'm not going out and trying anything I see now.
Yeah. You're not going to try anything you see in the half pipe. any of the runs that some of the top guys are doing.
We were at the epic era.
I feel like we were the right place and the right time as far as an era, and then and now, there's so much immediate, with just YouTube and Vimeo and Instagram, everyone wants instant satisfaction. But the really cool thing about now though is you got the drones, you got the FPV drones, you got GoPros and Reds, you got such dope Cineflexes. You got the GS on the heli mounted gyro stabilized stuff like that, and you just have such cool tools. And all the editing tools. Yeah, I mean, we did TB2. We had to put together. It was the first nonlinear edit that was like when it first came out. We literally had to put like Noah's part together. Yeah, we had to load all the clips in on his part, put it to that Primus song, and then render it. And go like out for pizza and come back after the render was done and watch his part. Yeah. Like, I think that shot's good. Then you could watch a couple seconds. Oh, he's going to land on that one beat. You couldn't just sit there and swap this clip and just watch.
Move it a little bit. Yeah.
You couldn't just watch.
Drag and drop.
Right. You couldn't do that. You had to like literally render it out. So it was also the timing of it. And when we edited that movie, we loaded we couldn't afford, we didn't have a beta deck. So we shot it all in film. We transferred all the beta SP tapes. And this is our first movie with MacDog. Yeah. So we couldn't afford a beta. We didn't own a beta deck. So we rented one for the weekend and we digitized all the footage on along a 3-day weekend. Wow. And we picked it up on a Friday, put it back on a Monday. I think it was $300 for the weekend. And we had to load all of TB2 onto a hard drive that weekend with the beta tapes. So it was MacDog and I and my brother, and since we were on a budget, and we basically did like 3 all-nighters in a row, and we had to we had a leather jacket, and whoever wore the leather, it was like 2 a.m, whoever was digitizing had to wear the leather jacket. Yeah, we were like, you tap the person on the 2:30 in the morning, and hand them the jacket, and then you'd like digitize 4 tapes and be half asleep, then you'd tap MacDog, here's the leather jacket. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, we just like wear this leather jacket to digitize all the tapes in one weekend. And now you can just shoot it all and just throw it on your computer. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely
Final Cut Pro is like, I've done some editing. I did a lot of audio editing, but Final Cut Pro with the video editing is like, it's drag and drop. Yeah. Like I'll be putting all sorts of your footage over when you're talking about it. Yeah. I just pull it from the internet, drop it on the thing, and now it's in a little window. It's so easy.
The technology.
It's insane.
If I could even thought of I thought of a GoPro. No, I didn't think of a GoPro, but I imagined a helmet cam like that. Well, not that small. Have we had the big film ones and like counterbalance with the weight. Yeah. And like to think, I was always trying, like when Justin Hoisnick was like going on the ropes. Right. And the cables and following people. Yeah. That was like kind of inspiration, I think, for like an FPV drone, if you think about it. Like
absolutely.
Now you look at these shots and like,
I have one in the car. I've got one that just follow cams me that I click a blue plus and now it's on me. Yeah. And then I could set how close or far it is, up and down the shot, what angle I want. And then I just put my phone in my pocket and I go.
Those shots are mind blowers.
Yeah.
Like Torstein turned me on to the guy he works with that does all the video drone racing.
FPV stuff.
Yeah. And I was just blown away. Yeah. Like we've shot together like 5 years ago out here on a really good winter. And I did a bunch of the stuff just on the Red with a tripod for shred bots. It was like basic filming, and the FPV guy was just killing it.
It's so fun to see. Yeah. Like actually just watching drone footage of like the drone flying around cool things. Yeah. Jason Brown was into that for years, like 10 years ago or something. And it's fascinating to watch. Yeah. It's awesome.
I mean, 20 years ago, we were 30 years, we were thinking of stuff, but you couldn't do it. It was
Yeah.
like, well, I was thinking
Yeah.
of like hanging a climbing rope down a couloir and
Yeah.
somehow getting lowered down a couloir and filming a guy going down a couloir, but using like a climbing rope and a pulley and being
Right.
like attached to the thing.
Yeah.
Because there was no drones to do it.
Meanwhile, a drone could do it in 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah,
like,
it's just
you
insane.
just sit there and press a button, right?
It's insane.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Oh man, you've been through so many eras of snowboarding, like from the very, very beginning,
Yeah.
to like the edge of the progression, and then
Yeah.
what was your favorite time?
Probably if I had to pick one favorite time, it would be Alaska between 1995 and 2000.
Yeah.
Because we would go there every year for a month. Private heli,
Yeah.
2 groups.
Yep.
And we were staying at the Sena, which is now like a billionaires club, literally. They have like eight helicopters there now, and every ship is a private, full private. Or 7 of them are privates, 7 are privates, 1 is a public.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite time because I was good friends with Lisa Wax, who owned the Sena back then. And there was these cabins. There was the Sena Lodge, and there was these little little cabins behind the lodge that they had been built. And this is when Doug Coombs had started Valdez Heli Ski Guides at that time. And Doug and I hit it off right off the bat. We were just like hungry to ride powder together and film. And that was just my favorite time. Lisa would rent us the cabins every year. So we would stay right at the Sena. We had our helicopter park right out front, 30 days of private, enough hobs to fly anywhere we want in the Chugach. There was no tenures at the time. There was no like, Black Ops can only go here. Valley Ski Guides can go here. Rendezvous can go there. H3O, H2O can only go here. There was no... It was just like the Wild West. Like you could fly anywhere you want. So we had our private heli for a month, right, and our cabin was right there. And we had we had a chef cooking all of our 3 meals a day, sack lunch, hot breakfast, hot dinner, and there was the bar down there on the pool table. And we would just fly around the Chugach and film and shred powder for a month every year and just free ride our brains out.
Oh wow!
And we would do we'd film all day. And then we get dropped off on the top of Diamond, do Diamond to Sena, which is like, anyone's ever been there, they know the run. I think it's a 6,000 or 7,000 foot run. It's like a 2,000 foot couloir down to like a roly-poly all the way to the lodge. And we'd have our, we just like do a film all day out in the Schwann Glacier, like a detention center or wherever, Cordova Peak. We go out there all day naming runs, like all first ascents, ride POW, get epic shots with Johan and Rippy, and Downing and all those guys, and then come back and just get dropped off at either Stairway to Heaven or get dropped off at on Diamond and ride it right to the lodge, and then have a halibut for dinner and play pool. We actually one day Tom Day and I had it all planned out. Like we figured that we could ride right to our cabin, without unclipping, like literally unclip from the Diamond. And we actually had 2 Alaskan Ambers and we put them in the snow and we rode down the Diamond, and we planned it out the night before. Like, we're going to ride down the Diamond, stay in I'm going to be in my snowboard. He was on skis, and then not even unclip from our board and crack an Alaska Amber, do a cheers and take a swig.
Nice.
After riding a Diamond to the Sena. So that just shit like that. I just remember times like that where you just can't, to me, I'll never repeat it. I'll never have the budget to ever do it again. I don't think the snow is off and on going to ever be. It'll be good on days, but you won't have, I don't think you're going to get 7-day stretches of Bluebird there you will here and there, but I don't think like what we have.
But it's not affordable. It's not
It's not
attainable. Nobody that can afford it is going to be at the level of passion that we're at, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. And even I say, and I don't want to be like a downer, but even global warming.
Right.
I don't think you're going to get the conditions. You might get a season that's good.
Yeah.
But we had it where literally 5 days, 6-7 days in a row of Bluebird with stable snow, with sloughs running, not even worrying about an avalanche anywhere.
Right.
With minimal to no wind and perfect temps. You just don't see those cycles as much anymore. You'll get a Bluebird cycle in the season. You'll get a 4 or 5 day stretch, and it still happens, but not at least, and it's definitely not going to happen for me again, because I'm not going to have a private heli in 30 days of heli time sitting right out, private heli right there. And and it was just classic back then too. We had our cabins, and you had dudes living in the snowbank below, like literally living in the snowbank, and they were doing chip runs down at ABA and Perata, and those guys hanging. It was just a really special time in Valdez and it's just more crowded now too. Like there was just less people there. You could fly out and you wouldn't see people. And, it's more tracked. It's not, you still can ride POW all day long in Alaska.
Yeah.
But it's just cool to not see people.
Yeah, of course.
Not have to cross any tracks.
One of the things that's absolutely the most inspiring and I'm most curious about is that throughout being this world-leading snowboard filmmaker, I never got the feeling that you lost yourself to like a big head. Maybe you did. Were there years in there where you were like a dick to people, or were you just always frothing for like you're getting your fix with this snowboarding thing? It's almost like, were you ever that guy that was like an asshole and then you're like, oh, I need a reckoning or whatever? Or were you just this the whole way through?
I don't feel like I was ever that person. I don't think it ever got to my head. There was moments when I didn't know how good I had it. Like now,
yes,
doing the job I do now,
yes,
and looking back at what I was just talking about in Valdez,
yes,
I never took it for granted, but I was so living in the moment. But I never felt like I had a big head. I'm sure, I know I pissed off some riders here and there, a couple here and there, cutting their footage, working with guys.
Yeah,
I've been verbally assaulted by somebody before.
Yeah,
I won't mention his name, and I don't feel like it was my fault.
Right,
but I've had people thrash on me, a couple people, one person in particular, like literally yell at me for cutting their footage. And so I feel like that's probably the most I did was like cut people's footage.
Did they come back and apologize after? Or?
No. I got verbally assaulted.
Right.
Pretty heavy.
But you
it
personally.
Bummed me out, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to be that person. I wasn't trying to be. I just felt like the person's footage wasn't making the cut.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest thing. Like maybe thinking back, I probably should have made more friend seggies and tried to make more people's footage work the best I can.
Right.
And best I could have. But I don't think I ever felt like I got a big head.
And you didn't have the time to do that at the time because it takes the time that it takes to get. Because obviously, if you had infinite time, you could edit it how
Yeah. And I felt like looking back, I felt like maybe I could have worked with the sponsors better here and there and done maybe early in the day, not webisodes, but like with the B grade footage and done more like behind the scenes. Cause sponsors were asking me early on, can you do more behind the scenes editing or give us these like parts and stuff like that? And like unused footage or shoot more day in the life stuff. And I wish I would have done more of that, but we were like, no, it's just the movie.
Right.
That's all we're shooting.
So that could come across as arrogance, but it's like, that's what you know what to do.
Yeah. That's what I felt like we were good at. That's what we were doing. And at the time it wasn't really paying the bills to do this extra stuff. And we were kind of understaffed the way it was. We had a very tight crew and I didn't really have enough time in the day to do all this extra editing. I mean, you can only shoot all day. You got to eat and sleep at one point.
Right. And then it's hindsight's 2020 or whatever. So now looking back, it's like, oh damn, that would have been dope if I would have pivoted and got, did you resist digital when it first came out?
Yes.
Yeah.
And also the internet in general.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of it.
Sure.
And I don't know if I still am to some extent. I could go on a whole tangent, but I let's say I'm not a huge fan of some types of social media and what it does to kids. I think especially young children.
Who could be a fan of that?
Yeah. Having a 17-year-old daughter that's on Snapchat.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother subject, but yes.
No, it's this subject because it is the progression. It is what ends up happening, right?
I feel like a lot of people spend way too much time on their phones.
I do.
Instagram, young kids, Snapchat. Get off your effing phone. Have a conversation with somebody. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Dude, do you want to go shred tomorrow?
Yeah.
Instead of just a text,
do stuff.
Call people, have a conversation, look people in the eye, shake their hand, whatever. But I think people spend obviously too much time on their phone. I think social media does some damage to people.
I think it's intentional too, because if you're depressed, you spend more time.
Yeah,
it works for them. It's a meat grinder where it's just like they wear you down. You don't. It happens to me, man. Yeah. I'm doing digital media.
Yeah,
I look at the competition. I go, what the fuck what am I doing? Why am I doing this? this. Just
yeah,
stop.
but yeah, and you look at people too, like on Facebook or Instagram, like that dude's surfing perfect waves today. I wish I was.
Totally.
Wish I was in Alaska ripping a spine today, but
yeah.
no, I'm doing my work.
Right.
So then you get jealous, which that's that part of social. You can't.
Yeah.
Life's not always perfect. There's
No.
ups and downs, obviously.
Right.
In people's relationships, you see these like perfect photos of these couples, and he's like, dude, it's not always like that. Okay,
No,
let's
for
see the unedited version of when you're arguing with your chick.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah.
when the internet first came out, I definitely feel like I zigged when I should have zagged.
Okay.
Like I feel like if you look at TGR, I admire those guys.
They still going right
yeah,
now?
they've got like 35 plus employees. They're killing it.
Wow.
So like when the internet first came out, we should have done those behind the scenes videos with like UC and Downey and,
You had
and Kevin
all the
Jones
heavies.
and
Yeah.
made little webisodes and given
Yeah.
them to the sponsors and
Yeah.
uploaded them for free.
Yeah.
And made a, standard. We have our whatever YouTube, but whatever, it's dust. It's whatever. No one probably barely watches it. Back in the day, we should have created online content and given it away for free. I should have had interns. I should have taken part of our profit we were making and paid people.
Yeah.
And develop that whole part of standard. And I think we would have had a longer shelf life.
Yeah.
So that's when I feel like I zigged when I should have zagged on the internet. But I also, at the same time, not to make excuses, but Fuel TV was rocking at that point. And
Yeah.
I was getting paid to produce TV shows.
Right.
And
right.
we
right.
did 8 seasons, I think it was,
Wow.
59 episodes of the standard snowboard show.
Yeah.
And Sean Tomlin approached me early on when he was the main guy at Fuel, and we were just asked me to do these shows. And I literally I'd never made a TV show. I'm like, dude, I make movies.
Right.
He's like, it's the same thing. You just shoot interviews and put some music under and dip the music down and put some graphics. I'm like, I don't know how to. He's like, you got to make a cold open. I'm like, well, what's a cold open? Yeah. And he's like, well, I'll tell you what I'll explain it to you.
Yeah.
Like, dude, he's like, literally, do I have to beg you on my hands and knees to make us a snowboard show?
Yeah.
I want you to make us a snowboard show. Here's some money.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to do it. And that's what happened. He gave us the budget and we started making these standard snowboard shows. And during that time,
How many episodes are there?
we made, I think, 59. I think it was 8 seasons.
Can you buy them? Are they?
You might be able to see them online somewhere. I
Yeah,
have the old
yeah.
DVD. I have DVDs you can take home with you. I have the standard snowboard
yeah.
shows. I have the old, but we were really, so all of our time we were shooting, let's say it was behind the scene footage or an interview with Kevin Jones or an interview with Noah. It was all going to that.
Yeah.
And that was exclusive content for them. We couldn't post it.
I get it.
It got to be a pretty fairly good budget.
Yeah.
Where we could actually send a filmer along on our trips to mainly shoot lifestyle.
Cool.
For the show.
Very
so
cool.
all that footage and then the sponsors were happy because they were part of the standard snowboard show on Fuel.
Yeah.
So they were happy, but I was distracted. I should have had a third person, or even another person. I mean, not necessarily a third, whatever. Should have had another body paying attention to the internet and what was now, Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
I should have been more on the forefront of that, but I was always just anti because I was so busy doing it and I just wasn't interested.
And if it gets on there, it's stealing. So the whole platform still now feels like stealing.
I was like, yeah. I mean, I remember Zimmerman getting mad about people publishing his photos like on Instagram because he wasn't getting paid. And I thought he had a point right off the bat. It's like, you can't it's Instagram, but it's an ad.
Sean Sullivan too.
Yeah, it's an ad. If you're going to post my photo, give me some money or give me a photo credit. So that was always something I felt like, I remember Aaron Chang. He's a fairly well-known surf photographer.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine. And we went to Alaska together and I went on surf trips with him. And he always would tell me, he's like, Mike, whatever you do, like if you're shooting a photo, we were shooting film, keep a fair, legitimate price on your stuff and charge for it because you're making a living off of that. And if you drop your price even $100, let's say you charge $1,000 for an ad or whatever. I'm not even saying that's the number, but whatever.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden so-and-so does it for 700 and then so-and-so does it for 700. All of a sudden it's like 700.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's 500. Then all of a sudden it's 400. And then all of a sudden you're down to a filmer making $250 a day. And that's just it drives the price down. And I felt like the internet was doing that, all this stuff for free.
Yes.
But now on the flip side, it actually can be lucrative
Yeah.
if you were on it and you have traffic and people viewing your
And
channel.
you own your product, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's-
Louis C.K. sells his comedy specials for $5
Yeah.
directly from him.
Yeah.
The money you're like Venmoing him or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and he's got so many fans.
Yeah.
That it's a living.
And then look at Teton Gravity Research,
Yeah.
Todd and Steve Jones.
Yeah.
Todd was smart, and Steve at the
Yeah.
beginning. They built their website up from day one.
I went on there to see it. Like,
Yeah.
how hard is it to buy a movie or whatever? It's super simple.
Their website, it's a big part of their business model.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, because people would buy your movies if there was
Yeah.
a spot where they could buy
Yeah.
your movies for $5, and then
Yeah.
hey, at Christmas get this 10-pack
Yeah.
for $50 or whatever, a 10-pack for $30. You'd be making that money, but it's hard to do. It's not easy.
No, they built that up from the beginning, and then
Yeah.
like I say, I zigged when I should have zagged.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it's easy to say that now, and I made a
Yes.
mistake.
Yeah.
But I rode a lot of POW and had a lot of fun time.
Yeah.
I was at a point where I'm shot all day. I'm making a movie. I'm making a living. I can pay the bills. I can go surfing when I want to surf. I go to the Mentawais every year and surf perfect Indo. I go to Baja every year and surf perfect waves.
Rad.
I can ride a ton of POW. I'm making pretty good money off just video sales. Why would I spend all this extra time doing all this extra stuff? Because I'm already feel like I'm working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Right.
And then I have certain big stretches of time off. Like we released our movie in September, and then October, November, into December was like no work, call Bert and get a few sponsors, the next
Yeah.
movies. I was
Yeah.
on autopilot.
Yeah.
I'd make like literally 10 phone calls and the whole next year was done.
That's the best.
Call Burton, call
Yeah.
Smith, call Volcom,
Yeah.
call Landvik, call Downing, call Rippey, call this guy. Okay, riders are set, budget set.
Yeah.
I'm going to Baja for a month surfing.
Nice.
So I didn't want to, I guess I should have, maybe it would have been smarter to work back then, play a little less and work a little more and develop that whole looking forward to the digital era.
You're not alone in that, dude.
Yeah.
Like if you look at movies from that time too, like just movies that are like going into the future, none of them predict phones. None of them. None of them have phones in them because it's just nobody could think that it was going to be like this.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? It's funny too, talking to some kids that I'm talking to, like my daughter, she's 17, and I'm seeing like these pro snowboarders that are 20 years old.
Yeah.
And they've never heard of like Damian Sanders
wow.
or Terry Kidwell.
Right.
And you're like, okay. And then and they don't even know what, they might know, but probably never even heard of like VHS tape.
Oh, right. Right.
So it's trippy to like think back
yeah.
in all, they grew up with they were born with a cell phone,
Yep.
a GoPro, a FPV drone.
Yeah.
It's just such a different world now.
Snowboarding to them is just this fully formed thing that's just got these superstars that are completely, that started when they were 2 and just are superstars now.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're at.
That's why the half pipe's so crazy now too,
Yeah.
because what are you looking at? You're looking at the crazy stuff. And when I first started filming and riding pipe, it was like a 180 or a 360 and riding in a little ditch.
Yeah.
And Terrier and Daniel Frank doing like the first McTwist and stuff. It's like, it's like, it was very, the bar was like, I remember literally, like TB3, Jamie, I think it's I don't want to make too many claims, but
Right.
Jamie Lynn doing a cab 5 in Norway off a cliff and stomping. It was like, might have been like the first cab 5 landed off a cliff.
Yeah, probably.
And then like Kevin Jones and TB7 doing the first front 1080 off the Johan kicker into POW.
Yeah.
Front side 10. It's like, I think that was the first time anyone's ever landed a front 10 into POW.
There was a whole universe of people watching going, this has never been done.
Yeah.
This is a first time thing.
Yeah.
Peter Line in those Transworld videos just did all these crazy things all in a row. This progression just happened in a season that was documented like bam, bam, bam.
Dude, I remember filming Peter Line in TB4. He does a switchback 7. It's in his part in TB4. And I'm right next to MacDot. We both shoot it. I'm like, dude, that was a dope back 7. And MacDot looks at me, he's like, that was switch. I'm like, that was switch? Like, for real. And then I actually asked Peter when he hiked up, was that switch? He's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just,
he's an anomaly.
Yeah. And it's like that in all the sports now. Surfing,
Yes.
mountain biking, rock climbing, skiing. it's just the progression's nuts.
Skateboarding.
And
oh
yeah,
my
the
God.
skateboarding, what you get to look at compared to what, and snowboarding is funny because seeing the first basically backside 3 that anyone's ever done off a cliff. You know, then it went to a cab 5 and then it went to then it went to like whatever. It went to a 720 and then, then it's just rad. I feel lucky to have been part of that progression from literally like avalanche pink hard shells in like the early days of like no one barely doing, 4-foot airs to what it's become now. And, I stopped doing movies in, 2112 was my last movie in 2012 and stuff progressed quite a bit in that time.
Yeah, of course.
But I definitely feel lucky to have been like there to watch guys like Jamie Lynn and Terrier and, all those guys. Like when I was there doing it, I wasn't like, being almost 56 years old now and like looking back on, man, I was lucky to be part of that. But when we were doing it, I was just doing it. I wasn't like thinking that, wow, this is going to be like this moment in history where I look back on and go, this is like the first guy to do this trick off a cliff or first guy to do this in the pipe or, it was cool to be part of that.
It's interesting. Like who knows what's going to be 50 years down the road. All your films were digitized and all the raw footage. Yeah. And it's ranked on there. You could just Google or just think, I wonder who the first person was. And then that Jamie Lynn footage will come up.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. And it's cool to be in Tahoe, like that we just happened to land here, that my dad moved us here because we were total derelicts. And then it just so happened that snowboarding was around, became this thing.
Yes.
And Dave, my brother, just so happened to meet Tom Burt and Jim Zellers and Damian Sanders and Kidwell and Palmer. And it just so happened that like Donner Summit was right down the street. Yeah. And whereas like the Donner Quarter Pipe, in Tahoe City, or the Donner Quarter Pipe and then also the Tahoe City Quarter Pipe. And it just so happened that Donner was like this mecca for freestyle snowboarding and all these like skater dudes, like style guys like Noah Slasnick and Roach coming up from Grass Valley and those guys doing their thing. And it all kind of happened at Donner. Yeah. It was like weird to like look. Yeah. It's cool to look back and go, that's kind of like where it all started. A lot of it started was like the freestyle movement started kind of at Donner Summit.
Yeah, Rippy was talking about watching the Burton guys ride. Yeah. And so like looking and going, I forget what he was saying, but like seeing Craig and so before he buys the first board that he's going to buy, he's asking, Keith Wallace, Mike Jacoby, Craig Kelly, what board should I get? And they're like, oh, get the, Jason Ford's like, get the Air, Craig's like, get the Craig. And they're like, the Air is good because it's, it's a little bit stiffer, easier length cliffs on, it turns really well. And he was showing me that board yesterday. And that board, like what a time to start. It's right when the first boards that you could ride down a groomed run on and rip. And they still function in powder. There's taper, there's like a longer nose, like what a time to start. But it was at Donner. He was a lifty at Donner. Yeah. So everything kind of converges on Donner. That's awesome.
Yeah. Donner was one of the first resorts to allow snowboarding. Yeah. One of the first. I'm not going to say the first. I don't know what the official first was, but yeah, it all was Donner.
But there was vibes, right? Like there was like great vibes.
Yeah, no, yeah, there was. And a lot of Donner too, what happens is you have the whole ASI area. Yeah. You can hike to a lot of the stuff right off the road. Right. And a lot of the stuff is like snowboarder and skier friendly. There's like lots of little perfect hits and cliffs. So snowboarders and skiers were just naturally walking because the road's right there. You walk out the road and the avalanche danger in general is not that bad. Right. In Tahoe, we have a maritime pack, so usually wait a day and you can go out. And for the most part,
so the maritime pack is lake effect. That's what it is.
No, well, the maritime is being close to the coast.
Yeah.
I'm not a snow scientist or
right.
claim to be.
We're not that close, are we?
No, we're San Francisco right there. We're maritime. Well, we have a maritime snowpack in Tahoe. Yeah. Like Valdez mainly. There is some continental there too. Yeah. Kind of where you're at. Yeah. But we're maritime and so
you get those huge dumps.
Yeah, we get the huge dumps and we get the good stability because it's a lot. We get the big warming trends and we don't get the like long cold stuff like Utah, and
the Rockies, right?
Yeah, where you have to worry about avalanches more. In Tahoe, it's usually like you wait a day and it's for the most part it's usually pretty good. If you have if you know what a cornice is, you know what a train trap is, you know what wind loading is. If you know the basics,
tree wells,
you can probably survive in Tahoe without being like a guide.
Yeah, Colorado's way different.
Way different. Huh? So that's why I think that's a lot of the reasons that the snowboarders too happened to be. It was the train, It was the stability of the snowpack. It was all kind of right there. It was like what made it so user friendly.
Yeah.
You don't
yeah.
have to hike that far.
Yeah.
And now though, and I'm not to be a downer again, but back to global warming, Tahoe's not what it used to be. Like we used to base out of here and make our snowboard videos here for 15 years. This was home base.
Yeah.
And you could literally shoot most of a movie here.
Yeah.
I would say now if Standard Films was to make a movie this winter, you'd be hard pressed to make it in Tahoe. To make you'd be lucky to make 10% of it in Tahoe.
Well, you just came off of last year. You guys had that same dry spell that we had. 6 weeks, no snow.
Yeah, it's typical now. We'll get like a 10-foot dump, and then we get warming temperature. Yeah, we get this huge high pressure and east wind. We used to just,
so a rain event, then frozen solid for 6 weeks.
It's
Great.
just,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just not, the snow is not as dependable as it used to be. We used to get a base and then 2 feet, 3 or 4 clear days. 2 feet, 3 or 4 clear days. Not every year, but most of the time it was fairly. It's just not what it used to be.
Right.
The snow is not as dependable to make a movie here, and it just isn't. It's not the same.
And the intelligent conversation around global warming is, yes, there are things that are weather, right? Like, and weather is weather, but if you look at climate, if you look at, the cycles of jet streams, and just you look at historical numbers for snowpack, and you look at the actual temperature of the oceans, the trend is warming. The trend is warming.
It seems like it. And for me, just being the layman,
Yeah.
how many rad film days were there this winter? Could we have made a snowboard video?
Yeah.
Answer is pretty much no.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
could have had 4 good film days. Like
Right.
it's just not, we used to have.
You can go historical, and there were some shitty years.
There were some shitty
early
years.
90s.
We had some
right.
like the 94 year.
Yeah, 94.
Yeah, we had some bad years, but
Right.
you typically, you could make a video here.
Yeah, of course, all the way through. Yeah, fuck, it's just nasty. It's disappointing.
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed.
And
again,
Jeremy Jones's point, it stands. 7 of all the last 100 years of Winter Olympics, or however many there's been, most of the places can't hold Winter Olympics anymore because of lack of snow.
Yeah.
Like it's not just one place.
Yeah.
It's all over the world.
It's all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we can turn it around. Maybe it's a pattern shift. Maybe it's a pattern. I don't think it is. I think it's global warming.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll be able to do the right thing. And maybe it seems like we're headed that direction. If seems like there's a lot of good ideas out there.
Yes.
And people are, I think, hopefully the good people win. And eventually all the young kids that are coming up today can keep the solutions going, and we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we can get it back.
Well, I've been a lefty kind of doom and gloomer for a long time because, 20 years ago, I read a David Suzuki book that basically just called it out. It said, look, it's like we're driving into a wall with a car going 80 and we're like a foot away and we haven't even tapped the brakes yet. Like we're fucked. And so that "we're fucked" really embedded itself in me. Mm-hmm. It really bothered me with like having kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But only in the last couple of weeks I've heard that 60% of the developed world, the richest countries, 60% of the adults think that we've got 12 years or less left of just civilization, of existence, and that's bizarre. It's not based on anything. That's not right. It's not right at all. Things are changing for sure, but we're going to be here for the long term. And I think that's a side effect of like just trying to make people despair and say like, I've said it on the camera before. The first time I heard that the fish collapse of tuna, I was like, I better go buy a bunch of tuna. Like that's how I felt. That was my first feeling. And that we don't want to be like that.
No, we don't want to be like that. I don't know if I don't believe the 12-year thing, and I think we can turn it around.
No.
And I've found myself too, like, especially since the pandemic and stuff, it's like been too much bad attitudes. Like I've been trying to flip it around again and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Squaw's not what it used to be. There's a lot of traffic now, and it gets skied out way faster, and the winters aren't as good as they are. But you know what? When it is good, just leave your house early, beat the traffic, ride when it's good, be stoked, work when it's not good, and then just get what you get and not like, I just try and keep my chin up and yeah, I'm not gonna play that game with just getting depressed about it.
Yeah, and the people that you've said over and over again, your Rippies, your Terriers, your Jamie Lynn's, when they're out riding, those are positive people.
Yeah.
Those are people that are having fun. The general public that they interact with, they're encouraging them. Like I saw Terrier, like, you know, stopping a flat because he was pushing a skier to get them up and over, and then he unstraps and pushed because he could see that they were a beginner and they were going to struggle with it. Like, these are positive people to be around, and that crew today was insane. It was like great. Everybody's having fun, and nobody's arguing. No, we got to go over here. We got to go over here. It was like just like a really good vibe.
We had a good crew today, and I've always looked up to Downey. Downey's always been a really good role model and positive. Dude, he's always, he's always, and we're pretty, definitely opposites in a lot of ways,
Sure.
as far as, certain things, but, but we've been good friends for a long time, and I've always looked up to Dave, and he's always done a lot of, helped me out a lot. A lot over the years.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking when he rode that surfboard in that part. That was like, that was so fun.
And my Linden thruster.
Yeah, because people had thought about it. Like it's like the GoPro thing. You thinking about it. It's like, wouldn't that work? I think it would work.
Oh, it totally worked. We thought about it together. I think we're sitting in my garage. Like, let's take that thing up and go shred it. Yeah. And then his split board part too in TV9 was cool when he wrote a split for the
That was so sick. Like a concept part, like where he's like, look, I'm going to prove these things work.
And those things are heavy. I mean, those are like, let's face it, they're not total performance boards.
No, even modern day splits are low performance.
Yeah, you got to be riding POW.
Yeah,
and definitely. I mean, they serve their purpose and they're good for what they are. But
totally,
if you can ride a real board, that's not cut in half, and it's better to ride a real board.
Absolutely, given the choice.
I'll be the first guy to admit to, like, around here, like, I'll split, but I'll use my snowmobile as much as I can and shuttle.
Yeah,
and ride a real board. I mean, if I can snowmobile shuttle, that's what I'm doing all day long.
Yeah. Do you power surf a bit? Have you tried that?
I've done just like a teeny bit, like one little
just
run.
Just because, it really has blown up.
Yeah, like, Downing's threatening. We're gonna go, I think, day after tomorrow.
Really?
Go out behind.
You're gonna love it, man. It's so much fun.
We're gonna go out behind the old Standard House to Watson Lake and go mess around.
That's crazy that you guys lived across the street from Mac Dog, and who else was just down the street from that? Sione maybe, or someone?
Sione?
Corey was like, okay, that you see that green roof right there? Was that the Standard House, or was that?
Were you over in Donner?
Oh, it was Fall Line. It was Fall Line.
Yeah,
it was the Fall Line house.
There was a lot of heads. Mac Dog lives down in Oceanside now, but there was a time when a lot of now a lot of pros live here, but there was a time when a lot of people lived in Tahoe.
Yeah, like you say, crews just trying to get out there early.
It was the Mecca. I mean, my old house, the old Standard House, it was literally a crash pad for the Burton riders mainly.
Yeah.
I should have charged lodging, man.
See here, you could have invented Airbnb and just had bunkhouse in the thing. It's like a hostel.
If I would have charged UC rent, even just $30 a night, it would have been in these guys literally UC, Yoni. I mean, the list. Our place was literally a rotating crash pad from December until through April for 15 years.
Yeah. So you had kids later in life, probably because of that, right? Like, you're not going to have a kid and have all your buddies crashing.
No.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out that way. Yeah. I mean, I have a 17-year-old and a 7-year-old now, but but when it was the standard days, it was literally, we had a 4-bedroom house. I lived upstairs. We had an office, and then 2 of the rooms were basically just standard rotating riders.
Wow.
3-4 people per, and we had the snowmobiles.
Jeez.
And we picked them up at the airport.
How fun.
And then let them stay there. I mean, we saved sponsors a lot of money.
Yeah.
Free lodging, snowmobiles.
You always kept your sponsors legitimate. Like, were you ever offered, I can't remember, a Ford Tahoe being in the mix or something?
No, we never, we tried for some car sponsors. We kept them all, legit in the industry, but we did try at the end for some. And then actually, when I made my last movie, when I made 2112, I'm not going to mention names, but some of the guys, started getting busy. Like Torstein was doing his thing, and Haldor, like, I can't shoot with you next year. I'm going to do my own thing. And then Torstein's, I'm going to do, we became Shred Bots, and then other people, Xavier was busy doing something. And that was one of the reasons I stopped doing videos, is because I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, okay, if I make another movie, this company is going to be my sponsor. This company is going to be my sponsor. I'm not going to say who they were, but I was like, I'm not doing this.
Really? Was it? Come on, you got to say who.
No,
it
I'm not
was.
going to say the names. I'm just saying that, like, I
You're
had
killing me.
Volcom,
Yeah.
Oakley, Burton,
Yeah, the main guys.
Ride. I had all for years. And I look back in the mirror and I go, I'm not going to make.
Oh,
what I'm saying is I stopped doing movies.
Because, I thought you were going to say Ford or something like
no,
that.
No,
You're talking lesser
I'm talking in industry
companies
that I thought personally were kind of hokey.
I got you.
And they're out there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say which ones, but I was just like, I'm not going to shoot with these riders. I'm not going to shoot with these guys. I'm not going out like that. I made my movies and I got to work with some incredible riders. And, you know, the last few guys, near the end of my career, it was like Torstein and Haldor and the Jackson brothers.
The best.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going out. I feel like I'm going to go out on a good note. Freddie K and good brands. I'm not going to like all of a sudden let lesser brands I would never, you know, in the day sponsor my video. I wouldn't have laughed at them, but I just wouldn't return their call.
I got you.
Be like, I'm not shooting with your rider, and you're not sponsoring my video because you're not rad enough.
Well, that's a part of it. That's a part of the integrity I was talking about, right? Like, so I don't see that as a big head. I see that as somebody that is a self-preservationist.
Yeah.
Like, nah, I'm just not selling out.
Yeah.
That's actually selling out.
Yeah.
When you're taking money from a company that you don't want to promote.
Yeah. And that's how I felt. And I could have kept making a few more videos and still made some decent money. But I was like, this has been a fun time. I made, 21 videos and it's been fun, and I'm still in one piece. Yeah. No one's ever gotten, knock on wood, no one ever got, killed on a shoot, and no one ever lost anybody.
Really? Oh my God.
No one ever died.
That's incredible.
Yeah. We had a couple avalanche burials and we dug them out.
Yeah.
Wooly and Ivy got buried for over 5 minutes.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah. And he survived. Torstein got buried. We had some pretty heavy injuries.
Yes.
But nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Some broken legs, and, no one ever got really messed up.
Yeah.
But we got lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people almost smoke trees. I've seen people almost hit their head on rocks.
Oof.
I've seen people almost die plenty of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt like it was like, okay, safe. Like,
yeah. But on that note, did you have PTSD at any point? Like, do you feel like, did you go into a deep depression after you stopped doing the film thing and you realized, I got to get a fucking day job and do all this stuff?
I did. I wouldn't say deep depression, but I went into a bit of a depression, a bit of an ego thing.
Yeah.
My ego was kind of bruised. Not that I ever had a big head, but I just felt,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Luckily I went right into doing the TGR stuff and directing 5 seasons for those guys of the show called Locals.
Yeah.
But after that, I went through a couple years where I was like, man, I got to reinvent myself. And I'm like 53 years old right now. Wow. And I got to like pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I'm out of savings, and I got to get a real job.
Yeah.
So that there was a bit of a thing where I was, I was tripping out a bit.
Did you, sign up with a therapist? What did you do?
No.
You go riding every day?
I didn't know therapist. I just rode. I surfed a lot.
Climbing.
Yeah. Rock climb,
Calling
surf,
your
snowboard.
Friends, stay connected with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still get bummed. Like even today being out there, I was thinking in my head, God, it'd be so rad to make a snowboard video again. It'd be like, I wish I was but I don't think it's in the cards for me ever again. And, but I never got like crazy depressed. I was just bummed that I like I said, back to the zig where I should have zagged, and I still could be doing this.
Yeah.
But you know what? On the flip side, you do something for 20 years, the same thing.
Yeah.
You get burned on it after a while too. Like, how many times can I make the same video? I don't feel like, how many times can I try and change the edit? What can I do different? Nothing really.
Right.
And it's the same, and at the end of the day, it's a snowboard video, and I'm like, it's time to explore some other things in life. But yeah, there's been some moments of depression and being bummed. And also too, financially, man, stuff has gotten to be tough out there in the world these days.
Hell yeah.
And it's like, yeah, stuff's expensive.
Yep.
Everything.
Yes.
Everyone knows this. Everyone watching this knows how expensive stuff is.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's been a bit of a reality. Like
Gap just keeps growing between the owners of the companies and the people that work there. We're going through a crisis where people won't work for $20 an hour to fucking McDonald's. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
That's
like I got to work.
nuts.
I'm almost 56 and I got to work 5 days a week to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I would wish it's going to work out.
Yeah.
I got a long-term plan. Maybe it's going to be over 60 or something by the time I can cut back. But I want to keep riding POW and do it while I physically can. You know, I want to ride POW and surf and rock climb. And
isn't that a weird moment? Like, cause I'm 49, turning 50 this year, but I just went through at my work, the post office transformed and they changed all the shit. And all of a sudden our walking, I went from walking, 7 to 10 kilometers a day, 5 days a week, to walking 15 to 22 kilometers a day, 5 days a week. And my body just melted down.
Yeah.
Like, so I went from working 4 or 5 hours a day and then the rest of the day was mine. By the time I put my head on my pillow, I forgot that was a work day, to being like coming home from work and just putting my head on the pillow being like, oh my God, I have to work again tomorrow. This is killing me. And I started to feel that mortality of like, I'm not going to be able to snowboard at this level in my 50s. If I'm breaking my body right now.
Oh yeah.
Definitely I'm looking at like, okay, maybe I've done my last 720. Maybe I've done my last 540. Maybe I'm not even going to do an air again. You know what I mean? Like, I'm starting to look at like, well, why would I sacrifice now so I could go snowboarding in my 60s and 70s? I got to go now.
They do it now while you can.
Yeah.
I'm the same thing. My body's been getting more and more. Can't climb as hard as I used to.
Right.
I barely catch air on my snowboard. I can still ride steep spines in Alaska and POW, but it's crazy how quick your body starts to go.
Right.
And it's crazy how fast it goes. I mean, people say time flies.
Yes.
But it is crazy. I literally almost feels like I could blink my eyes and feel like I'm shooting TB2.
Wow.
And be like,
wow.
Not like a blink of the eyes.
I know what
you're saying. But it's just like, did that just happen?
Yeah.
That fast?
Yeah.
And now I'm this old, and I was literally feel like I was just doing that. Like, and then sometimes anyone can look back on their life and think if they should have done things differently.
Yes.
But man,
yeah.
Do it while you're young.
I see it with my kid, not my kids, but with my friends' kids.
Yeah.
So I'll see my friend's kid and they've aged 5 years and I go, what the fuck was that? You're supposed to have a baby and you got a kid that's in school already.
Yeah.
Like, things just go by so quick.
So fun. I mean, if you're in the prime, when you're in the prime of your life and you're a pro snowboarder or pro surfer or whatever you're doing, and you're between 18, whatever, like 14, I should say now, gnarly people are getting in 30 years old and you're killing it.
Yeah.
You're in the best physical shape you're ever going to be in, and enjoy it, because you definitely starts to, but you know what, but then mentally you get stronger. Yeah. And you get more wise.
I think the thing that happened for me, that's the best thing that ever happened in my life, is that voice in my head, that negative voice. Not everybody has it. I definitely had it pretty bad. Yeah. That was just like, you're not good enough, and why are you doing this? And it's so stupid, and people are going to listen to the show and think you're an idiot. Like, that voice subsided. It's gone. It's like authenticity trumps like that imposter syndrome. Yeah. And if you can do one thing in your life that gives you that relief from that self-doubt, I just do that. Whatever it is. Whatever it is.
And everyone has self-doubt. I mean, even when we were killing it in standard, when we were on our heyday, I had lots of insecurities.
Wow,
people
really?
Going to like the movie, or do people really like this stuff, or is that guy going to return my call? Does he think I'm a kook? Is he going to want to ride in the, does that guy really want to ride in our movie? Is the guy going to, can we really do this? And like, I definitely would have like a lot of, not a lot, but definitely insecurities all the time. Yeah. Thinking back on stuff.
It's kind of the mode, right? Like, it's sort of what we instill in our kids, and it's like kind of the way of the world is like, oh, don't do that. People are going to think you're weird or whatever. Yeah. And I tried my best not to have that for my kids. Yeah. Like, I tried to just, you know, love them unconditionally and just be a platform for them to fall back on if they ever feel like that stuff. And I actively talked with them about it, but I didn't even know until the voice in my head subsided.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much it was kind of running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. I think
yeah.
everyone's got, a lot of people get that voice in their head.
But as you get older, it's like, you know, all of a sudden, if someone saw you in your underwear, you're not like, oh no, end of my life. You're like, whatever. I'm an old guy in my underwear. Fucking take a picture if you want. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right. So you stop worrying about those things, right? Like,
Definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, I have still have some issues with the comparison thing, because that's a real thief of like feeling good about yourself. You're like, oh, that was good. And then you turn and look and somebody's doing it better and you go, oh no.
Yeah.
And that's what the online thing is, just a machine for.
Yeah. And it's important for people to remember, you can't all be Travis Rice. You can't all be Danny Davis. You can't all be like, you know, and those guys all have, I'm sure they have their moments of insecurity and humanity too. They're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
As rad of the superstars those guys are.
Right.
But I think that's something too, like, I don't know if this is off tangent, but it's funny in snowboarding these days. And I think back to the past, it's like, okay for those guys to be the raddest.
Oh yeah.
And be paid more and be the gnarliest, because they are.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if you're that good and you've got that rad of personality and you sell product and you're that good of a snowboarder, pay them. And like, I'm stoked that everyone's included now.
Yes.
We all have our phones. We all get to, a lot of people get to be pro or whatever, but dude, seriously, like some people are just better than others.
Yes.
And it's okay to be the best.
Yeah.
And like, it's okay for those guys to like make a lot of money and be super successful.
Yeah.
Because they're role models for people.
We want that.
We want that.
Yeah.
Like more, I agree. More of it. And like
more of that.
Yeah. Like it's okay to not get the blue ribbon and not get the trophy.
Yeah. Trying to flatten the curve on like competition, it's not going to work.
Dude, it's okay to lose. Everyone, you need a loser.
Yeah. I think that's really true.
Yeah.
Because then you've got the redemption story, right? Yeah. The guy that was, couldn't get it going. When he does, it's awesome. Yeah. That's one of the things that's so great about like snowboarding in the park or snowboarding in the mountain and seeing somebody that's a beginner. And, you know, the other day I saw somebody his board was stuck and he was literally calling like, help, like he was like really worried. And then I'm like, I'm not hopping back up to undo your bindings, dude. The best thing for you to do right now is somersault. Try a somersault. Try and flip. And he tried really hard, and then he came back, and he's like, it's not working. I'm gonna be stuck here forever. I'm like, try again. And then his board came loose a little bit, and I'm like, okay, can you see your bindings? He's like, yeah. I'm like, take your bindings off, get up on top, strap back in, and follow that track, and you're out, right? Yeah. I'm not staying with you. You are good. Yeah. But like, it's almost as fun to see somebody who's a beginner that gets to that proficiency really quick as it is to see somebody who's that like inspiring guy. Totally. There's a full spectrum of everything.
I love to see people get stoked.
Yeah.
I love seeing people get like, and definitely as I've gotten older, I've gotten, I love to see beginners out there and just get stoked on snowboarding. Right. And stoked on even climbing and get like, I used to be a little more surfing. Yeah, it's a little too crowded.
It's too crowded. It's too crowded.
The less people, the better. But even then, it's just like now I've gotten the point. That's a good thing about getting a little older too. Like you get a little older, you're surfing, and I used to froth. So I was never a wave hog, but I like to get waves. Yeah. Now I'm like, you know what? If you want to paddle around me, go ahead. There's going to be another set behind it. I'll get the next one. I'm not going to give you stink eye or yell at you for like jockeying me. Right. Like I just find it's just, but I just, you get older. It's kind of cool because you get more stoked for I definitely love seeing people get stoked on the sports I love.
Yeah. Like when you see that beginner the next year and they've got like a cool kit and they're riding better, that stokes me the hell out too.
Yeah. And I love giving people a hand and giving people pointers and stuff. What I do not like these days, you see people doing dumb stuff. Yeah. And you give them a pointer and they give you stink eye.
Yeah, man.
And I've seen that, not a lot, but I've seen it in the backcountry.
Oh, that's a scary one.
And I've seen it in climbing a lot. Yeah. Because I learned from the Yosemite guys on the rescue team in Yosemite, and I've climbed a lot.
That's insane.
And I don't like claim anything, but I do know some stuff about safety. and you see people doing the dumb stuff, and especially climbing. You say, hey, you really should back that up or not do that when they give you stink eye.
Yeah.
Or you see something, 3 dudes ripping down the bowl in the backcountry all at once, and no one's. It's like, hey, dude,
no
if there's,
gear.
if there's an Avi, there's no one's going to dig you out because you're all 3 going to be in the slide.
Right.
And then they give you a hard time. But for the most part, I think people are pretty receptive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've seen definitely people, it's funny sometimes when you see people out there, they're not. You see a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I got in a fight with the lady who was like, "Where are you going?" And we're like, "We're going to the backside of this hill." She goes, "Well, I'm following you." And I said, "Well, that's not how that works. Like, you can't say that." "Well, I am." And I'm like, "Okay, well, then if you set a slide on us, make sure you have a beacon to, we all have beacons. Where do you have a beacon?" She says, "It's in the car." I said, "Okay, well then go back to the car and think about how you're going to ask us the next time you see us if you could join our group of friends that have prepared to be here."
Yeah.
Like it was so hard. She was just saying, "Well, you just want all the turns for yourself." And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of do, obviously." But at the same time, it's like, it's really rude what you're doing. It's really, really and it's dangerous. But whatever. Yeah, that stuff happens for sure because just the sheer volume of people that are just going to be like noodling around, ducking the rope because you ducked the rope, following, where are you guys going? That looks good. Wait 10 minutes for you to go, or 10 seconds or whatever, and then just follow you down.
I mean, it's crazy. I think back to TB2 when we first started shooting out at Donner. And going there now, we were literally the only people. Yeah. There was like 7 or 8, maybe 10 people total sessioning in it.
Yeah.
And now you go there and there's you can, on a good powder day, you can almost see 100.
Yeah.
If not more. So it's trippy to see and that same goes for squaw.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point I remember when there was like 20 snowboarders at squaw total on the hill.
That's unreal.
Yeah. And that was for a season or 2. And you could count them on, there was 20 of us.
Yeah, and it just goes exponential, right? Like 20, then there's 40, then there's 80, then there's 160, then there's
more. And I remember when squaw allowed snowboarding.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was like the best birthday present you could ever imagine. It's just like, squaw is allowing snowboarding.
Yeah.
We were just freaking out.
So much good terrain.
Oh yeah, because we were, nothing against Donner Ski Ranch, but I mean, come on, squaw is a way better hill.
Yeah.
And when they allowed snowboarding, it was just this gift.
Yeah.
Just this we're going to allow snowboarding full time next year, and you can have a season pass, and you can buy a pass, and you can actually ride your snowboard here all year.
And then the year after that, everybody moves here, I'd imagine.
People started moving in. Yeah, but I mean, and there was the early years that everyone kind of knows, or maybe people don't know, but most people here, the stink eye from the skiers.
Yes.
There was we were kind of hated on at first.
Yeah.
But luckily at squaw, my brother and I, we were good friends with a lot of the really rad skiers, like guys on the Pro Mogul Tour.
Yeah.
And we just knew a lot of skiers, and they loved us.
Rad.
And they were stoked.
Yeah.
They were all the good local skiers that were good at skiing, the true locals. They loved the snowboarders. They were stoked. They were freaking out. They're like, "You guys are crazy. We're going riding backwards and doing but it was a lot. It was the random kooky skier from the Bay Area that would give you stink eye or call you an effing snowboarder or whatever. But it was so random you could just laugh it off.
Yeah.
It was like literally one, even in the worst of it, it was fairly random.
Yeah.
I mean, it was never like that bad. So, and I always would, if someone ever gave me a hard time, I just kind of laugh it off.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm friends with in my head thinking
guys.
I'm friends with the best pro skiers in the world. So you could just F off with your attitude. I don't even need to listen to you because you don't even know who I'm friends with.
Yeah. I feel like I got into it so late that was, it was more of a thing that was perpetuated in the magazines, what I mean? It was skiers versus snowboarders. Yeah. When I called Palmer and talked to him the first or second year of the show, he was like, "I was a skier. I don't give a shit."
And they don't give it. Most of the best guys. Yeah. I can remember too, around 90, probably 95.
Yeah.
Getting yelled at by some skier at squaw.
Yeah.
And I was leaving to Alaska 2 days, in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I just thought in my head, and I'm not trying to be cocky.
No.
I'm like, dude, if you knew.
Yes.
That I have a private heli waiting for me for a month, and I'm going to get more POW in the next month than you probably are going to ski in your lifetime.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to ride with Doug Coombs.
Right.
who's a skier,
Yeah. Yeah.
you just have no clue. But I just wouldn't even like. I was just like thinking to myself. I was laugh to myself.
Yeah,
I'm like, you
yeah.
just like, I won't even talk to you. Like,
Yeah, who is taking the time out of their day
Yeah.
skiing
Yeah.
to worry about what some
Yeah.
other person is doing?
Yeah, go ahead and yell at me for being a snowboarder, but you
Yeah.
have no clue what I'm doing in 2 days, so you can just F off.
It was such a weird thing to
Yeah.
have skiers pitted against us, but we were doing shit that they just couldn't have thought up on their own, right? Like
Yeah.
riding on a building or
Yeah.
jumping, coming out of a ditch onto the
Yeah.
run and scaring their kids or whatever. That there was some legit stuff there.
And then a lot of the snowboarders were kind of like in the early days. Some of them were kind of dirt baggy and
I was an asshole
Yeah.
that had never skied before, so
Yeah.
I didn't know like lift etiquette. I was like, hey, if we
Yeah.
go up the ski patrol line, we could just skip these fucking lines, you
Yeah.
know? And then sooner or later, people will be like, hey, I saw that guy, like he's had 2 runs, and we're still in fucking line here.
Yeah.
Hey, boo, like so. Yeah, we were getting drunk, like we were being assholes.
people were,
Right.
and they, you got these skiers that are ski racers and they're like,
And they've been there
Obermeyer.
their whole life.
Yeah, I mean,
too.
it's a way
Yeah.
more regimented thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was
Yeah.
it was funny how the snowboarders they brought that cool life. Eventually it all meshed together.
Yeah.
They brought a really cool thing into skiing and kind of saved the ski industry, in my opinion.
I think so too, and
mean,
reinvigorated just
yeah.
what it meant to be at a ski resort.
And now it's so cool to see like the skiers and snowboarders riding together.
Yeah.
And you got the skiers riding backwards and like
Totally.
everyone's bros.
Totally.
And skiing is gnarly. I mean, and I loved how you have the disciplines. You can get way gnarlier on skis, like in the big mountain riding, you can stomp bigger cliffs, you can ride on firmer hard pack, you can do way gnarlier lines.
Yeah.
But then again, on a snowboard, you can get way more skatey and it's got more like this different flow to it. And
It has a different feel. Like
Yeah.
it looks different. It looks more fun.
yeah, it does look, to me, it's more fun, but I'm a snowboarder.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I love the differences, how they play off each other.
Sure.
And I love how gnarly, watching gnarly skiers get gnarly on something that a snowboarder would probably never do.
Totally.
And then I like watching snowboarders do something skatey that like just doesn't look as cool.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
a backside, riding fakie on skis, doing like a back one and landing backwards. Yeah, it's rad. You landed backwards, but come on, a back 180 on a snowboard, it's way doper.
Oh yeah, man.
It's just
Definitely.
more cool.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't know. I don't know. I kind of love watching, and I got to film with skiers this year with Michelle Parker and Griffin Post up in Alaska, and film strictly skiing, no snowboarding.
Rad.
So it was
Rad.
That was different for me.
And you still rode? You still do the
Yeah.
program, film in the morning? And
Well,
ride
no,
at night?
the film of unfortunately I still got a few free runs in.
Sure.
And I talked everyone into it. And we did some,
Yeah.
but the program is not as good.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Yeah. I remember one year in Valdez with Doug Coombs, we shot all year. Everyone had their film parts done. And I had a day with Doug and Emily, and we had a private heli, and no filming occurred.
Yeah.
And we rode, and anyone that's been to Valdez will know these peaks. We did Meteorite, Pontoon, the Wall, and the Diamond all in one day. No cameras, all for fun.
Oh.
In our own private heli. And that was like probably one of the best days of my life.
Yeah,
like,
that's you win snowboarding. Like that's it. You win snowboarding. Like
Yeah.
that's how could you do a better day than that?
Yeah, that was the most, and it was all perfect powder, stable, epic day, and no cameras. Like, well, all the footage is in the cam. Let's just go ride for fun.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like a late in the year, and like a lot of people had left.
Yeah.
So nothing was tracked. There was no one really in the Chugach,
Wow.
and that was our day.
Yeah.
Let's just go ride all these runs for fun.
That's insane.
And then another one I remember is a TB6 when Rippy did TB6 when the Sphinx.
Yep.
He did the first ascent in TB5, which is in there, and then TB6 we went back.
Yeah.
And Yoshiro Higai was with me shooting stills.
Yeah.
Shot Rippy. We took the doors off the heli. Shot the heli shot. Shot Doug Coombs coming down it. Everyone's at the bottom. And we put the door back on the heli, and we're like, okay. It was like, okay, we got the shot. And like Higai's like, thinking like, what are we going to shoot next? And I go, Higai, we're going to do next? He's like, what are we doing? Where's the next photo? I'm like, we're going to go ride Sphinx. And he was just like, no, for fun? I'm like, yeah, we're going to ride it for fun. They rode it. Now we get to ride it. And they get to do it
No
again. They can do
way.
a second lap on it too.
Sure,
So we're all four
sure.
going to go up and do a hot lap. We're just going to go ride this for fun, just because we can, and we're sitting here right now, and that's a very epic run, and I want to do it.
Yeah.
And he was freaking out. He was so stoked. He got to the bottom. Was just, that's the kind of, that was the shit I lived for back in the day. It was like stoking out someone that didn't. He thought we were going to shoot photos. We did shoot more photos. He got the cover shot at TB6, so he got a bunch more stills, but we got to do that one run.
That's unreal. Man.
Yeah, and you just got to squeeze in those moments when
Yeah,
you know the
yeah.
moment is there.
Yeah.
Because how many times are you going to get to be at Sphinx
Right.
on a stable bluebird day that you can actually go hit it?
Yeah.
Like, and you got to ask yourself sometimes when you're in those moments, like, I should go do this right now
Right.
with no camera and just go do it because I can.
Yeah.
And that's kind of back in the day. That was like kind of what I lived for up in Valdez. It was just like those moments to hit those lines and like, okay, go ride some big ass line with no, filming. Oh, it's already in the can, and then go get to ride it.
Ugh.
Yeah. I'll never forget. He got the look on his face
Yeah,
when I told
yeah,
him
yeah.
we were going to go do it. Cause I knew he was good. He was a good rider.
Yeah.
The thing is steep. It's techie. It's like a gnarly run. It's like one of the
Sphinx,
prize
man.
runs of Valdez.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, you got to ride it.
And how was the run?
It was epic.
Of course.
Big slough, super steep. It was
Yeah.
just like all time.
Oh man.
I mean, it was as good as it gets,
All right, we're ending it there at 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh my God. Yeah, you'll have to edit some of that.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
I could never have imagined, the one with your brother was one of my favorites ever because of he's got the same stoke. You guys share that same hunger for just enjoying yourselves in the mountains and bringing your friends along and bringing people along. Like, that's so sick, dude.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you for documenting snowboarding in the way that you did and for, living your life the way that you lived it. And thanks for being the legit guy behind the camera. No offense to Rob Gracie, but when he pulls up on his skis and he's smoking a cigarette and I'm like, what? What the fuck kind of, what? What the hell is this? Like, I'm not taking a lap with that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's fine.
Yeah. It's total classic, man. You're the best. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
FNRad shout outs this week to Mike Hatchett and the entire Hatchett family. Sitting with you for a few hours was a bucket list item that I'm still glowing from today, Mike. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the listeners. You guys are the reason I do this. Who am I kidding? I'm doing this for myself, obviously. But I really appreciate you guys listening. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by FNRad Snowboarding.